Hereby call this meeting to order. This is the June 26, 2018 business meeting of the School District of Indian River County School Board. At this time, we will please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag to the greatest nation in the world. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, at this time, call for a motion. Adoption of the orders of the day.
Move approval. Second.
Okay. Actually, my script is a little different. Was there anything anybody wanted to move from consent to action? No? Motion stands. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now, Dr. Rendell, you are recognized for a series of presentations.
Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. McMillan. We have a presentation with the Learning Alliance and some work that was done in Fellsmere Elementary with Chief Touchberry, and we also have a short video clip.
Good evening, everyone. We have a short presentation section tonight, but it's still very important. Tonight, I'd like to ask Dr. Jones to come up to introduce our Code Schools video. It's a new coding program that's happening at the State College, and we have some students who are in it, and they are getting a chance of a lifetime this summer.
Just a special thank you to our superintendent and school board. This has been a phenomenal experience for these students. They just started their 4th week. Again, they gave up 8 weeks of their summer, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 3:30. I have visited them maybe about 5 times, and the teacher says, who's 27, says they're doing very, very well. At the end of this program on July 26th, they will be getting certificates, and they will be certified in certain programs such as JavaScript, Ruby on Rails, and so forth. But if you have a chance to stop by Mueller Center, 8 to 3:30 on Monday through Thursday, please do so. They are phenomenal. Thank you again for your support.
The School District of Indian River County, in partnership with the South Florida Accelerator and IRSC, hosted a summer coding camp through Code Schools. This $15,000 per person program was free for the students who were selected to participate in this unique opportunity.
We're teaching them basic JavaScript, and we're going to be teaching them a stack called LAMP, which stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. And this is a basic stack so they can start creating web pages. What we're trying to do is we're trying to train these kids straight out of high school so they can go straight into internship programs.
I chose Code Schools because, for one, it's free and it's a great opportunity. And second of all, I really like to program and make stuff. In the past, I've actually worked a little bit with JavaScript and HTML and CSS already. And I've also worked with C#, which makes games. And so I've made a game actually for my previous computer class. And so I do have a little experience with code, but it's really cool because it's a great opportunity.
I'm in this program because I really wanted to do a change in my life because I do different type of things. In the cosmetology field, you don't really know what looks good on you, so you're just going by chance. But with coding, I'm able to develop a software where I can take a picture of my face and then scroll through and put what's on me to see if I really like it before I go and do it.
I think the major thing for me with taking up like 8 weeks out of my summer for this code camp is just knowing how to do JavaScript, how to do HTML and CSS, and knowing how to do PHP, which is server side. I feel like it would be a lot easier for me to get job opportunities with that if I already knew how to do that.
Whatever you want to do, go into it right away. Don't hold back. Don't be scared to fail. A lot of people, when they're going into programming, they don't want to type something wrong. They don't want to break anything. And this whole thing is about breaking stuff, about creating. It's about creating, destroying, and updating everything. So I would say go in there and have fun and play around with your programs. That's what they're for.
At the end of the summer coding camp, students will leave with certificates, internship opportunities, and the skills necessary to take on 21st century careers. Thank you to the South Florida Accelerator, IRSC, and Code Schools for investing in our students and their futures.
Thank you. For our final presentation tonight, we have Marie O'Brien from the Learning Alliance and Chief Touchberry from Fellsmere PD. They're talking about the Cadets and Kids program. It's a Moonshot Community Network program that's in partnership with Fellsmere PD. Thanks so much, Marie.
Thank you and good evening. So I'm Marie O'Brien with the Learning Alliance, but I'm here tonight representing the Moonshot Community Action Network. And I want to introduce Chief Touchberry and Amy Shoemaker. Just to tell you a little bit about Moonshot Community Action Network is working on our Moonshot Literacy Movement. So everybody's heard Moonshot Moment, which is our literacy goal. But what we've realized is it starts at birth, so I love seeing a baby here. And it's all about having a Moonshot community where we take a stand for children in early education. And through the network, we're building partnerships. And we're here to tell you about one of the partnerships that seems a little unusual, but it's really moving this forward. And I just want to point out to you, this is a partnership we have in Fellsmere with Fellsmere Elementary. Fellsmere is really the epitome of a Moonshot community. Everybody's really working together to help the children and families. So Chief Touchberry is going to talk about the program Cadets and Kids, and then we also brought Amy Shoemaker because she is a third grade teacher in Fellsmere Elementary. Amy's students, in case she doesn't have time for this, scored, 71% of the kids scored proficient, meaning 3 or higher on their ELA for the FSA score. So that's really remarkable. It's significantly higher than the rest of the school, and we think a lot of it's because of this partnership program.
If we could just, good afternoon, everyone, Keith Touchberry, and if we can just go ahead and play the video first, and it'll kind of speak for itself, and then I'll follow up with a few comments. This program is called Cadets and Kids, and it's a partnership between the Law Enforcement Academy here in Fort Pierce, Florida, and Fellsmere Elementary School, in particular the third grade OWL class. And the purpose of the partnership is for them to help and support each other through their academics. Their school year basically coincided. But what's most significant about a third grade class and a law enforcement class is they have something in common. They both have to pass an important test at the end of their learning if they're going to go on to the next level. So that's why we introduced the law enforcement recruits to a third grade class at Fellsmere Elementary, so they can support each other and along the way get to know each other and have fun, but really help each other pass their tests so they can move on to the next level.
We're here to see the celebration of AL 150. We've been working together by helping each other. The thing that surprised me most was then when they came with us to eat. Because I never thought that the police cadets would come to eat with us.
I just think this has been a tremendous program, and I think we're able to take it to the next level with the entire school next year, and maybe something that can be done in other schools in Florida. It's a really important opportunity for kids to learn and get to know what it means for people to become a police officer, and it's a good opportunity for people who want to be police officers to truly learn what it means to serve in a community, especially when it comes to knowing kids.
Thank you very much. It helped me support my friends, my other people, and now I feel like I'm very important to the whole community.
LEO 150, Teamwork is the way to go. Let me in or let me out. Together we will fight it out. Hoorah!
So tremendous job to Moonshot Moment for putting that video together, and we look forward to future videos for the next round of Cadets and Kids, which we intend to expand to the entire third grade at Fellsmere Elementary in partnership this time with Law Enforcement Class 154. And their semester, if you will, begins October and ends in May, just like LE 150 did. So the encouraging parts about this program are the fact that the kids develop this bond with these adult learners, and they had the same pact and motto and saying and philosophy and rules and classroom. They just modeled themselves after them. And Amy Shoemaker was instrumental in ensuring a lot of those things happen by developing the pact statement and having them all sign it. So it was their mutual commitment to passing these goals. 16 out of 17 of her kids passed the FSA. And all of the recruits passed their state exam, and many of them are employed today. So I certainly would, if you want to ask Amy any questions, she's here to talk about her experience as a teacher because she was instrumental in this program's success. And we're happy to report that this is not something that's just going to be limited here. We're going to certainly look at expanding it within the school district if feasible. And I have a commitment from the new chief of police for the Palm Beach School District of Police. And he wants to shadow us this year and potentially start it in Palm Beach County School District next year. So really looking forward to that. And Amy, did you have anything you wanted to add? Or she was right there with him, if you had a moment, right there with the kids.
Well, in a nutshell, I just want to say that my kids felt special, they felt encouraged, and they felt needed because they were getting the support from these cadets, and they knew that they were going to support our kids through third grade. And in turn, my third graders supported them through their academic career. So in 20 years from now, they're going to remember that.
Board members, do you have any questions for Chief Touchberry, Marie, or Ms. Shoemaker?
I just would like to say a big thank you to Amy. I know opening your classroom up to having new people come in is always something that's wonderful and exciting, but can be challenging too. So thank you for taking on that challenge. It seems like such a wonderful partnership, and I look forward to seeing it expanded across Fellsmere Elementary, certainly in the district. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just
Sure,
wanted
that's the last of the presentations.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Ms. O'Brien for bringing this good story to us, and Chief Touchberry for your steadfast leadership there in Fellsmere. It's most appreciated, sir. Thank you. Okay, with presentations finished, we are on to citizen input. Up first, Devin Dupuis. Up next will be Stacy Klim.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to the Title I Part A grant funding going to the Title I schools in our district this upcoming year. I'm an academic advisor at Indian River State College. Sorry, can you hear me now? I'm an academic advisor at IRSC, also known as 13th grade. And I can tell you from my own perspective that when students who come from poverty, disadvantaged students, do not get the assistance that they need at the lower grade levels, most of them never make it to my office. And the few that do make it to my office, very few of them actually graduate with a college degree. So I just wanted to say thank you for that from the perspective of someone who gets them after they leave your schools. And with this type of funding and these type of programs, I think that you're going to see more of them going to college after K through 12. And I've never been so excited about increasing my workload. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your comments. If we could please hold the applause that's for presentation. It helps us move along, and it actually keeps the speakers on track. We have Ms. Klim, followed by Ms. Cannon.
Thank you. I want to talk about transportation tonight. At the last school board meeting, there was a new transportation position that was discussed with you guys, and I noticed it's now on the job website for a position. So at the last school board meeting, it was kind of insinuated that we were saving money on this position because some of the money was coming from IDEA, which is money that should be going to ESE, and the other was coming from the general fund. And so with a lot of back and forth with our finance director, I discovered that it's actually all coming from our general fund. And I understand that maybe we need an assistant to the transportation director, but let me tell you a little bit about our experiences with the transportation department. I think we actually need somebody to answer the phone, because my son's bus, my son has disabilities, he's on the one of the special needs buses, and there have been instances throughout the year where the bus just hasn't shown up, and I am not blaming the bus driver or the aides, because they're saving grace, they're amazing. But when I call the transportation department to find out where is the bus, nobody answers the phone. So this happened, I don't know, maybe a couple months before school ended. The bus didn't show up. I called this transportation number. Nobody answered. I called another number. Nobody answered. I left messages. Third time, someone finally answered. I said, oh, thank goodness someone answered. And the lady instantly became very rude with me. And she's like, what are you talking about? I've been here all morning. I've never once heard the phone ring. And I said, well, I've called 3 times. I've left 2 messages. So I said, I'm just trying to find out where my son's bus is. I found out that the bus had broken down and that the bus driver had to come back and get another bus, which is fine, things happen. But I said it would be nice if someone would call parents and let them know that the bus is gonna be 45 minutes late. While I'm doing this, my husband is getting my son into our car to take him to school because it's already past school time and he's late. So when I said it would be nice if someone called us, what do you think the reaction was of that woman? She hung up on me. Was hung up on. That's not acceptable. So then, just at the beginning of summer school, the bus was supposed to be there at 7:37. 8 o'clock came and went. My son is now late for school. My husband is again loading him up to take him to school. And I call again. Nobody answers. I leave a message. I call another number. Nobody answers. I leave a message. I called another number. Nobody answered. I left a message. My husband just gave up and took my son to school. Do you think I ever got a call back? No. I've never gotten any calls back when I've left messages at the transportation department. That's not acceptable, and I'm not alone. I've heard this from many other parents. So when we're giving the director an assistant, maybe we should look at these kind of things before we do that, and maybe think, maybe we should hire someone to answer the phone first. Because it's not okay for my son to be late to school numerous times because the bus isn't there and because no one in the transportation department can tell me where that bus is.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your comments. Miss Liz Cannon, you are recognized for 3 minutes, followed by Phyllis Fry. You'll be next.
Good evening. In the 19 years of my career spent all here in Indian River County, I have had the privilege of working with some amazing people. We are very lucky to have such dedicated and devoted employees who not only love our students, but take such pride in the work that we do. Over the years, some have come and gone, but tonight we must say goodbye to 2 very extraordinary people. When I started teaching at Gifford Middle School years ago, I thought I had the best principal I could get, but the people who had been there before me said no. Dave Kramick may be good, but Dr. Peggy Jones was the best principal ever. Over the past year, I have learned how right they are. Doc is one of the finest educators I have ever encountered. She embodies the spirit of putting students first, while giving immense respect to teachers. She is fair-minded and hardworking. I feel truly blessed for having this time to work with such an educator. Doc, you will be missed greatly. In our world today, we meet so few genuinely kind and happy people. Bruce Green is the quintessential good person. He cares so deeply about every endeavor he takes on, you can't help but want to work with him. Over the years, I have gotten to work closely with Bruce, and I am better for it. His dedication knows no bounds. There will be a significant hole left in Indian River County without you, Bruce. Our losses become their family's gains. As Mr. Searcy said in at your last business meeting, it is a problem when we lose so many good people. We have yet to see next year's organizational chart, which is understandable because of the holes left by Dr. Jones and Mr. Green. But I do wonder when that chart will be presented to the public. So, in closing, I am saddened that we are losing such talent, but grateful for the opportunity to work with these extraordinary individuals. I wish you both the best in all of your future endeavors, and thank you for your outstanding service to Indian River County.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your comments. Okay, Ms. Fry, you are next, followed by Arthur Economy. Is that?
Mr. Chairman, board members, staff, and the members of the public, good evening. We have a growing concern in our community for the safety of our children attending Beachland Elementary School. Both the speed and volume of vehicular traffic along Indian River Drive East has been identified by the City of Vero Beach as a safety risk. In season, over 3,000 cars per week pass by the school entrance on Indian River Drive. Digital speed signs have been added, but a new development is about to exacerbate this problem area. Adding to the safety risks is a proposal to establish a brewery and bar in McWilliam Park across the street from the school at the River House Community Center, serving alcohol as many as 100 patrons per day for 12 consecutive hours, 5 days a week, beginning at 11 a.m. With approximately 500 children arriving and departing daily at the school, their safety is placed at heightened risk. These changes will add a significant number of drivers who may be under the influence of alcohol so close to our school, and it should be made known to the parents and to the school board, as safety is our first priority. In America, 29 people per day die as a result of inebriated drivers. That is one person every 50 minutes. As good neighbors, we feel that a brewery or bar should not be located in close proximity to the school ground, the Little League baseball field, or the family-friendly dog park. Coach Young is not happy. Members of the Volunteer Ambulance Squad and the Power Squadron are also concerned. In the last 7 days, 482 residents in the neighborhood have signed a petition objecting to this proposal. At the very least, we wanted you to know that this has been presented to the City Council and is under consideration. If you would like to consider this as an actionable item, we would support that, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Next, we have Mr. Economy.
Hello, my name is Arthur Economy. I live at 3598 Indian River Drive East, and I'm kind of doing a little bit follow-up with Phyllis Fry's comments. I'm here to speak to you about the traffic and safety concerns around Beachland Elementary School. In the past several months, some city council members have been considering allowing a brewery to open either in the River House in the McWilliam Park, approximately 700 feet from Beachland School, or the Waddell Insurance Building, which is at the corner of Indian River Drive East and Dade Palm. That's less than 500 feet from real school property. The city council members do not have the best interests of the city at heart. They are ignoring the safety of the area surrounding the school when they should be trying to improve it. They may try to circumvent the city charter, laws, and liquor ordinances to assist this private brewery owner in setting up business adjacent to Beachland Elementary. I have personally witnessed very dangerous traffic conditions on Indian River Drive East and Mockingbird bordering the school property. The city recently placed speed display signs because of the excessive speeding in that area. The city did a traffic study, reiterating what Phyllis said, that showed over 3,100 cars travel between Route 60 and Dade Palm Road per day. The peak hour is about 3 p.m. Adding a brewery that is open from 11:30 or so every day, a.m. every day, this will only increase the traffic and danger for students. Please have your school safety officials and legal counsel investigate these issues before they become more dangerous. Elements such as alcohol are added to this already extremely unsafe area. We are concerned about the risks that may affect these students. Thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, I gave a sheet.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your comments. I believe those are our last speaker. Okay. Having concluded citizen input, we are on to the consent agenda. At this time, the chair will
Make a motion to
entertain-
approve. Second.
Wow, okay. Simcheck with the motion. Mrs. Justice with the second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
No, thank you.
Your second.
No, sir.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair, if I could interrupt.
Oh, yes.
With the approval of the consent agenda, we have a couple of positions that I'd like to highlight. The first is the appointment of Mr. Todd Racine as principal at Sebastian River Middle School. I'd like to give Mr. Racine the opportunity to come up to the microphone and say a few words about his appointment.
Good evening, and thank you for a few moments to speak to this, Dr. Rendell. It's going to be an exciting time to return back to Sebastian River Middle School. I started teaching there 25 years ago. Left and worked around the district at a few administrative locations. Went back to the school as a principal in 2009. When in 2012, Dr. Adams asked me to go over to the high school. And now I have this opportunity to return back to Sebastian River Middle School. And I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity, for this moment. It's something that I've wanted and look forward to. I've enjoyed my time at Sebastian River High School. It's a wonderful school. It's certainly in a great stand right now to keep making gains academically and with all the other incentives that the school is working on. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to go back to the middle school and start preparing kids now for the high school again. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you for your service and your leadership, sir. Dr. Rendell?
Definitely. And we have one more appointment that I'd like to highlight. That's the appointment of Daryl Brown as principal at Sebastian River High School. I'd like to give Mr. Brown a few moments at the podium. You do have a time limit.
Understood, sir. Understood. I'll be short and sweet. I'd like to say good evening, Dr. Rendell, Board Chair Mr. Frost, school board members, Mrs. Justice, Mr. Searcy, Mrs. Simchek, Mrs. Zork, and also to the assistant superintendents here tonight. Tonight, I am completely overwhelmed with joy and excitement with your decision to allow me to serve and lead this great school that we all know as the great Sebastian River High School, home of the Prideful Sharks. This coming year marks the 25th anniversary of one of the most iconic public institutions in the greater city of Sebastian, Florida. It is beyond my belief that as a native son of Indian River County and a kid out of Wabasca, Florida, that one day I would lead the charge toward greatness and stability at this fine institution of learning. In my past 17 years of experience, my professional career has grown and matured at a level that I could ever imagine from the time I started here at the age of 25. That was a long time ago. Not so young anymore. Through a watchful eye and a discerning spirit, I have come to understand the true meaning of what leadership is and what it should look like every single day. It is no doubt in my mind that the lifeline of Sebastian River High School stems from its students, teachers, parents, custodial staff, cafeteria, secretarial, and support staff. My vision and passion for Sebastian River High School revolves around building a positive culture, a caring climate, and a supportive community towards school success. In my professional view, it takes creating meaningful relationships, listening with a careful ear, understanding with an open heart, taking responsibility and working together towards a common goal. When Dr. Peggy Jones first interviewed me back in August of 2001, one of the questions that she asked me was to give her one word that would describe me as a person. So I slowly pondered the question and replied with one simple word, which was probity. She then simply asked me, "What does that mean, Mr. Brown?" I then responded back with the definition, which means uprightness through honesty and integrity. The very people who are responsible for instilling those three values in my life are here with me tonight, which are my loving, caring, God-fearing parents. Kenneth Brown, he couldn't be here tonight. He's at work. He's a hard-working dude. And LaWanda Taylor, who's here tonight. Also here tonight are my sister, my household siblings, Janicki Smith, who works for the City of Sebastian Police Department, and my brother Kenneth Jr. Brown Jr., a little nervous, who is a 7th grade civics teacher at Sebastian River Middle School. Also here tonight to support me are my wonderful nieces, nephews, Araya, Jadrin, Kyrie, Noah, and Taylor. She's in college right now, college senior at Florida A&M University, majoring in criminal justice. Also here are my uncle, a few of my aunts, and a few cousins also in the crowd, and my sister back there, Kiani, and Ja'Cory. I love my family with all of my heart. Here tonight, I want you to know that I will serve, protect, and lead and support my school community as if it was my very own family member. At this time, I just want to acknowledge some folks who I could not have done this without their support and guidance along the way during my personal life and my professional career. My deceased grandparents, Mr. George and Edna Taylor, who migrated from Mississippi, West Point, Mississippi, back in the 50s. As you see here in the crowd tonight, a few of my relatives have on shirts in memory of my grandmother and my grandfather, who I know are looking down on me and proud of me tonight. Dr. Rendell, Dr. Peggy Jones, who gave me my start as a guidance counselor. Dr. Lillian Martinez, who gave me a chance as an assistant principal at Highlands Elementary. Mr. Bill Wilson II, Mr. Billy Wilson III, the late Tanisha Peppers Wilson, Mrs. Letitia Hart, Mr. Kevin Browning, Coach Randy Bethel, Mrs. Robin Bethel, Dr. Deborah Long, Mr. Dan Smith, Dr. William Dodds, Mr. Craig Kinsley, Ms. Judy Klowski, Mr. Sean O'Keefe, Mr. Todd Racine, Ms. Donna Olson, Mr. Chris Colstead, Mr. Enrique Valencia, Mr. Eric Seymour, and the late Mr. Charles Washington Jr. Thank you all again for supporting and guiding me in this great and noble profession of life. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Of course, you know you got work starting tomorrow, 7 a.m. So.
Sir, I've already put in time to go to Ohio, fly to Ohio tomorrow, and I'm taking my mom with me. So if she needs to write a permission slip, I can.
Oh, you're good, man. You're good. You're good. You're good.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Congratulations. We expect great things from you, Mr. Brown. We know you'll deliver. Any other recognitions, Dr. Mandel?
No, thank you for the indulgence, Mr. Chair.
Always a pleasure, sir. Okay, we are on to our action agenda. Action item A, public hearing for adoption of revisions to Code of Student Conduct Handbook effective for 2018-2019 school year. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Yes, Mr. Chair, in action item A, we're seeking permission to hold a public hearing for the adoption of the revisions to the Code of Student Conduct Handbook effective for the 18-19 school year.
Okay. This item deals with the adoption of revisions to the Code of Student Conduct Handbook. Dr. Rendell, have you documented that this public hearing was properly advertised in accordance with state statutes?
Yes, I have.
Okay. We now recess this meeting to conduct the public hearing as advertised. The public hearing is now in session. Dr. Rendell, are there any written responses to the advertised public hearing to be read at this time?
No, Mr. Chair, we did not receive any written responses.
Okay, the public is invited to address this issue at this time. Is there an individual representing an organization or his own personal or public interest who wishes to speak? Okay. The chair concludes that the announced public hearing. Oh, we have one? Oh, please come to the podium and speak. Thank you. I didn't see it.
My name is Albert Koningsberg. My address is 5575 Northeast Trieste Way in Boca Raton, Florida. And the reason why I wanted to speak, I just want to get a little clarity on your county's vision for the safety and the security of the children, how your assessment is going with the schools, and who we should contact to discuss the school safety program going forward.
The purpose of this is to discuss our student code of conduct, but Dr. Rendell, if you'd like to.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the public hearing that we're in right now is about the Code of Student Conduct Handbook, revisions to the Code of Student Conduct Handbook. If you want to discuss the school safety measures that we engage with to protect our students, you contact me at any time. We can set up a meeting and we can do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other person who would like to speak to the hearing item? Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Lipton, and I was one of the participants on the Code of Conduct. I see several people in the room that were also part of it. If any of you feel comfortable standing, I think you should stand and be recognized for the work that you did. We met several times, and we agreed that we were satisfied with the changes that we had made. However, most of us felt we would like to be on it again next year. There are other changes that we would like to see made at that time, and that we hope that you will approve the work we did for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other person who would like to speak? Okay. Chair concludes that the announced public hearing on the adoption of revisions to the Code of Student Conduct Handbook has been conducted pursuant to the notice, and that ample opportunity to address this issue has been provided to all. The board meeting is reconvened at this time. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Mrs. Justice moves approval. Mrs. Zork with a second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
Not at this time.
Second. Any further discussion? Mrs. Simchik, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I want to thank the committee members who participated and also staff. I know it was a long process and a lot of work and hard work on that. So I do want to thank the community and those that participated. I just had some concerns. All of us received today an email, if you haven't had a chance to read it, from Sergeant Partee. Did all my board members read that? I would like to read it then, for he had said he wasn't able to attend. So I think it's important. Good afternoon. I'm writing this email because I will be unable to attend tonight's school board meeting as I am out of town. I wanted to inform all of you of a few things relating to the committee that met to revise the Positive Climate and Discipline Code of Student Conduct. I had the honor to participate as a committee member and attended all but 2 meetings. The committee met numerous times while attending these meetings. I was extremely impressed with the structure of the meetings, which at the time proved to be beneficial to maximize the job we were doing. I was working on infractions, which, as you can imagine, was a big piece. As a group, we decided we needed additional time, so we met several more times than the majority of the committee. The environment of was inviting, to say the least, and all opinions were comments were listened to and considered. The gang piece of the code was of great concern to some of the committee members. I believe we came to a consensus to follow the state law and the state of Florida's definition of what gang-related activity means. I believe it's important to keep that piece in the code. No one in Indian River County that I am aware of wants to accept the gang culture being promoted to our children, especially while at school. Again, please accept this as my input for tonight's meeting during the public hearing, as I am unable to participate. Thank you all for your hard work. Sincerely, Sergeant Ross Partee. So I unfortunately didn't get it till after our long workshop, which made me scramble to make sure we were covered. And at first glance, even I, and so I'm going to ask for my board to help in this discussion. Or without having Sergeant Partee here, it is difficult for me to, to process this, so I'll need your all help. So I see where under the gang, inserted was criminal gang, and it would be in action item A on page 42. Thank you for following along. So just so the public can follow along, there was gang and there was a description, and I remember Sergeant Partee came forward and discussed the Florida statute 874.03 defines, so at first glance, even I felt that we had satisfied Sergeant Partee's.
Right.
However, his email said gang activity, which is the second one. And that this presents, and I couldn't get the meeting, it is April 10th, trying to pull up and see what his wishes was and how we directed staff. And I know it was not intent or malice, and it may even be they've done the correct job, because as I can pre-apologize to staff, I'm not sure, because I can't pull that meeting up very quickly. But here is my dilemma. I'm hoping my peers can help me digest this, and maybe some direction from the attorney that can ultimately help me to either move along or decline to approve at this moment. I feel the intent might make sense, but the gang-related activity does not say per the Florida statute, which is, this is the assessor's description, and not per the statute. And I clearly remember that Ross particularly came to the table and said that it's important that be in there. So we get the chicken before the egg, and so I quickly ran and spoke to a couple of people, and then went to the attorney. And I don't know how the intent, I would hate to, when we specifically had a consensus to interject that statute in there, and then, so that's my dilemma only. Out of this whole piece of work, it's wonderful. Everyone did a wonderful job that's on the board, but I hope you can understand, someone who I respect and defer to, a law enforcement officer, and dealing in gang, which is truly defined by statute. Then the second part, when at the workshop he wanted that added, I need to come to either a comfort level through the attorney, and who I value so highly, to help, and also my peers to help digest that, because at face value, I would have to decline this and say, and then again, that's such a problem, because I can't go to the tape on April 10th. And I would hate, so let me give an example. So everybody wears the Croatian flag that day to school, and it is interpreted as a gang activity. I'm just making something up because I don't know what to make up this. I'm not versed in the law. So if a group considers it, is it really a gang activity, or does it have to be tied per the statute to the one above? If that in law, and I would never put just our deputy back there, he's going to run out of the room, on the spot, and Sergeant Partee is not here, I would clearly want to make sure it's just not what I feel is a gang, not what the principal feels. It's truly what a gang member tied to gang activity, that we can connect the dots. And again, we're going to start working again, so I could pass this, as we've made the public have to pass and live. I will live by my own words, and it can be interjected into the next, rolled into the next year. But I want to find some comfort level. Could my peers help me, by giving me their thoughts, and then maybe, I could get some definition from the attorney, because I think she had some thoughts on it that I still can't sort out. So I wanted to include you all in the conversation. We certainly discuss and motivate each other and point out different things we see. Draw back to that meeting from memory about what Sergeant Partee said, and maybe add into the conversation if you could.
Okay.
And since some of us saw the email and then I saw it, that's what's
Right.
frightened me, because it was right after our workshop, and I don't have any time to move on this.
So did he explicitly advocate for the defeat of this proposal?
No, and I think...
That's not what I heard in the email, but I wasn't sure if there was more.
I think what he advocated, which is the confusion and dilemma to me, as our public somehow, the process is a little hard to understand. There's the hearing and then the advertising, because the process tonight, there's a couple of things. I could, not just this, anything. I could say no, and if I'm on the downside of a vote, it doesn't matter. I could say no, and I'm on the upside of a vote, or we could say with the amendment and re-advertise. There's all sorts of I before E's. So I'd rather first digest his email, which was just, he felt that and that's what concerns me, that the gang-related activity should be tied to the statute. So I think maybe this would be a good time for the attorney, because I quickly asked her, that's two separate things. This definition is different than the state statute. So
You prepared to speak to that? Or-
I had the quick 10-second So if she could answer that.
Yes, Mrs. Simchek, the definition that's in the Code of Conduct, and it's entitled gang-related activity with an asterisk by it, that definition is actually a Department of Education definition. It comes from the School Environmental Safety Incident Reporting System. SESR is how we commonly refer to it. So the definition that you see as gang-related activity does not come from the criminal or penal statute. It comes from the Department of Education definitions of things that may occur on a school campus that are required to be reported to the Department of Education as part of that annual or periodic reporting system. So that's the asterisk definition. Right above that, you'll see another definition. It says gang, and then in parentheses, criminal gang. That definition does come from the criminal or penal statute. That is the definition there. And I believe the, if I could slightly rephrase your question, is whether the school board also wishes to include in your code of conduct the definition from the criminal statute of gang-related activity criminal. An analogy, if I could, is you'll see a little higher up on this particular page is a definition of fighting with an asterisk, which is again the SESR definition of fighting, but right above that is a district definition of fighting. So you have two different ways to define fighting. And I believe the question from Mrs. Simchek is whether you also, with regard to gang-related activity, wish to include not only the SESR definition, which is what you have in there, but also the definition from the criminal statute 874.03. There's a specific definition of gang-related activity criminal. So that's kind of a slightly rephrased question of the issue for your consideration.
Does that answer your question?
Well, that answers my question then on a point of a moral compass base. I cannot, it can't as is without an amendment. And there are some options, for me personally. Now, that becomes when they do the roll call, a point of whatever. But there are some options. There's to approve it tonight. And again, because this isn't because he sent an email. This is because I specifically remember him coming to the table and board consensus said that. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty good with that stuff. And that's why I was calling upon your memories, because I remember we said, please put that in. So just like this, under fighting, we would have had the gang-related activity with and I feel bad that a law enforcement officer attends. We have doubling up with school resource officers at all the schools. We have money. We tell staff, and I believe, to include that, and it's not included. Maybe I could volley back to the attorney, if you don't mind, and ask what the remedy is, as we've done for the public and we've presented. We can approve as is with an amendment to publicly advertise, or what are some remedies that might make me comfortable approving it, or just voting my heart?
Depending upon the wish of the school board, you always have the option of rejecting this evening and not adopting anything new, and you would just continue on with your existing code of conduct. That's, of course, always an option. If the board wishes to include a new definition in this booklet that you're considering, it would be considered a substantive change to the policy that you would be being asked to adopt, which would require us to re-advertise and re-notice the public hearing for 30 days in the future. So if you wanted to do that, that's one process to follow. It is also possible, if there's any interest by the board, if you wish to add in this new definition, to do it in two parts, if you will. If you are in agreement with what is in front of you this evening, without any substantive changes, you could go ahead and adopt what you have in front of you this evening, and then request the superintendent to immediately start the rulemaking process to add one definition into your code of conduct. it would require a 30-day notification notice and a public hearing. Once that one new definition is adopted, it would be considered an amendment or an addendum to your code of conduct and would need to be distributed to parents and students so that they understood the added definition at that time, which may occur the first day of school or the day after the first day of school. I don't know what the timeline might be for this, but that is certainly an option to where you could at least adopt the work that has been accomplished, but still accomplish adding in this definition if the board wishes to add the criminal definition of gang activity.
Okay, members, you've heard a description. Further discussion is suggested. You're shaking your head no. What does that mean, sir?
We're on a deadline, from what I understand, to get this thing printed and put in place. We ran into this same problem last year. We deferred it and we redid it. And my comments back to the gentle lady here, Ross was on the committee that put this thing together, and I would imagine after we made our comments to our suggestions back to the committee, all the committee members had the option to put the verbiage in there as you're suggesting.
No, I'm assuming what happened. At our workshop,
Okay.
after they all did that,
Okay.
he came to the table. I'm not sure if you were there.
He was at the workshop.
He came, and we all had consensus. This wasn't, they went back to the table again. It was a consensus on putting in statute, which appeared in the one above it. But then the definition of gang activity was through consensus. And I hope you all can respectfully understand, I can't do that to Sergeant Partee or to myself, and I have a problem here. So I don't, if you all, I'd like to know how everybody feels. I don't have a problem. When we name buildings and it's somebody's policy not to name a building, it doesn't affect the vote. So, but for me, I have to say great work, but I got to decline because we asked staff to make the change. It wasn't made. My other process would be in empathy to go ahead and pass it tonight, but then direct the superintendent to add the amendment, which could be a slip of paper or a little something. But I'm hoping the rest of you all heard what I heard at the workshop, which was to put the definition in statute in our thing. We all said yes, consensus, and it was supposed to be inserted. And that was from the law enforcement side. So it wasn't during a meeting. It was the finished product and the final version through a workshop come to us, and we all agreed to interject. So I have a belly barometer thing going. If you don't, that's fine.
Mrs. Justice,
I
thank you
move
for your
approval.
patience.
I move approval here on this. I'd like to rescind my motion and then make a new motion to approve the code of conduct as is currently written and ask the superintendent I'd like to review this specific area because I do not remember specifically if there was consensus or we did give direction to staff to make that amendment to this. And in all fairness to you, I appreciate you having the courage to come forward and bring this forward. I think it's very important. And if we did, in fact, give direction, then it should be included. So I don't want the good work of this to go away, but I'd like to amend my motion. So,
Mrs. Justice has withdrawn her motion. Mrs. Zork, you withdraw your second. Okay, very good. Okay, we now have no motion before us.
I'd like to move approval on the current work here, and then ask Dr. Rendell to do some further research on this specific area, and then make an amendment or an addendum to the positive code of conduct definitions if needed.
And re-advertise.
For that
For the
specific,
process.
if that's acceptable.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Can I
Sure.
ask a question about your motion? Is that possible? Is there a timeline on when he would have to come back with, is it for the next year, or would it be within the 30 days or before school starts?
It would be adding in addition to this current code of conduct, if I understand what the board attorney has said, it would be adding an additional definition. I mean, here's the deal, we need to print it, we do need to start with it, and the committee has done wonderful work, and I appreciate their work on this, and I think considering what last year's, this is Dr. Torres Martinez and her team and working with our community, it's awesome. So I don't want to lose that. So I think we can adapt, and if there's been an oversight, then let's correct it. And we said last time, there's never a wrong time to do the right thing.
Mrs. Simchak.
Well, I think somebody needs to second it, so I don't know if Mrs.
No,
Sorkis-
I would like to second that because I agree.
And I thank my peers.
Motion
And,
and a second.
and I think the addendum doesn't need to be, if the addendum's a slip of paper, am I understanding if that's?
Or a
that-
sticker.
Or a sticker or something. I would like to, again, review the tape because, and it really, this isn't even the actual subject matter. And I hope you'll at least understand this, Mr. Searcy, when work comes through. And we tell staff, and our staff works very hard, and it's progress, not perfection. But when we give direction to staff, and it doesn't come through, in this case, no malice or anything, maybe an oversight, but it did appear in the gang. So thank you for that. That change was, but I think there was a part 2, and we did give direction, and it's not here. So a sticker at a later date, when that change comes, if it's September with a sticker, I have no problem with that. But thank you for accommodating that because I believe we were all part of that consensus. And I believe that that's on the tape that we'll find. I will be, and I was able to pull it up. Remember, it was a very long meeting. I just couldn't get it. Otherwise, I would not make this I just couldn't get it between the 5 and the whatever. And I know that's important to a law enforcement officer. And I know we all, if it's true and we all approved it, and it just wasn't done, I feel badly about that. So thank you and I appreciate very much that you entertained that, and I appreciate it.
Call for the question.
Thank you. I'll quickly explain my vote before I call the question. In the definition that we're going to adopt today, it says a gang is a somewhat organized group of some duration, sometimes characterized by turf concerns, symbols, special dress, or colors. The group is recognized as having one of its primary activities, the commission of one or more criminal acts, and a gang by its members and others. Sounds like a pretty fair definition, a common sense definition of gang. To me, however, I agree that we're one line away from perfect here, and we can't let perfect be the enemy of the great. So for that reason, I'll support it, and I like that we're going to investigate and make sure that we're, if that's the case, that we're adding the reference to 874.03. So that's the explanation of my vote. It's not roll call, is it?
No, sir.
I didn't think so.
Excuse me, one
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Just to clearly explain, it wouldn't be adding, if it was that simple, the definition in the gang-related statute is different than this definition, to my understanding. Is that correct, Ms. D'Agresta? And that's the concern. That's why. I just want to let you know, it's not just adding the per statute. I wouldn't, if it was the same and it was just per adding that statute, I wouldn't have a problem. They're two different definitions.
Yes,
Yes, we have.
the definition in the Department of Education CESAR regulations is the definition in your code that you're looking at. The criminal definition of gang-related activities is different. And so if eventually the board gets to the point where they wish to add in that second definition for a criminal gang-related activity, it would be an additional definition. It would not be taking one out
Okay.
and replacing it with another.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, as this is not a roll call vote, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Congratulations. On action item B, approval of contract for consultative services with Dr. John W. Hodge and Urban Learning and Leadership Center. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Frost. In action item B, this is a follow-up to the work that we engaged with this school year with the Urban Learning and Leadership Center. You may recall, the board may recall, and the public may recall that we asked them to come in and evaluate all of our schools and give us their impression on how we're doing in different things with academic achievement, specifically for students in underrepresented communities. They identified 5 schools that they thought we needed to do some work with. And we've pared that down to 4 schools, and we have entered into contract negotiations with them to have them provide services for next year with those 4 schools. And so we're seeking approval of the agreement with them. The total cost of the district is $73,200. For that, we get service to those 4 schools, 6 visits a year with Dr. Hodge and his team. They have a great track record of improving academic achievement in the schools they work with. So follow-up to the work we did this year, a continuation with those 4 schools for next year.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Mrs. Justice moves approval. Second? Schoenfeld seconds. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
Yes, sir, I would. I just want to thank Dr. Deborah Long and her team for working on this. I know that the African American Achievement Committee was given the opportunity to work with a consultant, and then Dr. Long brought forward a number of consultants that the committee learned about and then voted on, and they chose to work with ULC. So I know that Dr. Long's been working very closely with them and will continue to. And I think that I expect great work. If Dr. Hodge, when he came, spoke about the fact that every teacher and every person on a school campus needs to believe that every student is capable of success, and they're going to work on that culture and climate and relationship building, because if a student does not feel valued, learning is not going to happen in the way that it should. So I'm excited about this, and I'm excited to see the increase in student achievement that comes along with this work.
Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Mrs. Zork has a question. and then-
Okay.
Yep.
On the last sentence where it says insurance has been approved by risk management, can you explain to me what that exactly means?
It means that the Risk Management Department has signed off on the insurance that this vendor has provided. The insurance certificate that is in the backup does expire in August, I believe, but we have a commitment from them to get a new insurance certificate as soon as possible. Their insurance carrier won't issue them one until it's within 30 days of the other one expiring. We've run into this with several other contracts in the past, so it's the same thing.
Okay.
She finished.
Is that your last question?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Searcy, you're recognized.
I too have a question about the insurance certificate, but in this particular case, this is the most perfect one that I've seen presented by the insurance department or risk manager or whatever, and I just wanted to compliment them. But I do have one question. There's always a but in there, I guess. But my question is, the contract begins July the 1st. This insurance expires August the 16th of this year, and who monitors all of the insurance certificates that we have to ensure that we have a certificate in place upon the expiration of this? Who does that?
Mr. Morrison?
Typically, we ask the initiating and the contract management department to ensure that the insurance is in place, but we work with them through the risk management department to monitor and make sure that it is kept current. So it's a joint effort by both, by the folks who are managing the contract plus risk management.
But do we have a list and by date? This one expires August the 1st, this one August the 2nd, okay.
Yeah, we have established like a tickler file in risk management to follow that stuff.
Okay. This one's good, though.
High praise.
I'm going to miss your insurance.
Somebody's got to pick it up.
You're right.
That's a huge risk for us.
Yes, sir.
Do it
I'll
well. Any other discussion? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Action item C, approval of the 2018-19 Title I Part A program, improving the academic achievement of the disadvantaged. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, action items C through F are all related. Action items C through F are all the plans for the different federal grant programs that we are eligible for from the federal government. The federal government does provide, through the state, additional funds for different types of services to provide to students. So action item C is actually for the Title I Part A program, which basically serves students who are in high poverty areas, students on free and reduced lunch, or schools that have high percentages of free and reduced lunch. So the plan for the Title I Part A program totals $4,815,860.32. So we have attached the plan for your approval.
Approximately. Okay, so we have, the item has been explained. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Simchek moves approval. Mrs. Zork seconds. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
No, thank you.
Your second.
No, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Bless you.
Thank you.
I have.
Mr.
one
Searcy.
que- Did you say it was approximately $4,815,860,000.32?
It is today.
Oh, okay, that's good.
In round numbers.
That's good.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Action item D, approval of the 2018-19 Title II, Part A, Supporting Effective Instruction. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And action item D is actually the federal money that is used for staff development or professional development training for teachers and other staff. The amount in this, the anticipated allocation is $626,761.
Okay, entertain a motion? Mrs. Justice moves approval.
Second.
Mrs. Simchek with a second. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, sir.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Action item E, approval of the 2018-19 Title III, Part A, English Language Acquisition. Dr. Rendell, would you present the item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Action item E is the plan for the federal money that's directed towards English language learners or English for speakers of other languages, often referred to as ESL or ESOL students. The preliminary budget for this is $114,436.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Ms. Simchek moves approval.
Second.
Mrs. Zork seconds. Like to speak to your motion? Your second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Action item F, approval of grant applications for Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. Part B, for 2018-19. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And action item F is actually the last of the federal grant money. This is for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, or this is for our students with special needs, learning disabilities and other challenges. The grant money is in two parts. IDEA Part B for preschool is $114,581, and then Part B for really for the first grade through or K through 12 students with disabilities is $3,878,844.
Entertain a motion.
$878,844.
Move approval.
Mrs. Justice, motion.
Second.
Mrs. Zork with a second. Like to speak to your motion?
No, sir.
Second.
No, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Action item G, approval to renew Cisco SmartNet maintenance and support from Presidio Network Solutions. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And action item G, this is a renewal of the yearly maintenance and support agreement with Cisco for maintenance of various communication systems. The cost is $144,440.10. Mr. Green.
The cost is about $36,000 less than last year due to some upgrades of network switches through E-rates, which reduces your maintenance cost because you have newer equipment. This was budgeted for in the zero-based budget in Project 586 general funds, and it's the phone system, network switches, your 911, all those maintenance and supports on those systems.
Move to approve.
Ms. Simchek moves approval.
Second.
Mrs. Justice with a second. Like to speak to your motion?
I just want to say thank you, Mr. Green. This is a very good system, and I'm excited that we're renewing it. And it's when it comes to communications for the school district, it's important that we're always on the cutting edge. And I think that Mr. Green, through your direction, we've always been. So I thank you for that. I also want to say I'm excited that the price has gone down.
Your second, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Action item H, approval of 3-year hosting services agreement with People Admin. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In action item H, we are seeking approval for a 3-year initial license and hosting agreement with People Admin, which used to be Performance Matters. The cost for this for the first year is $136,334. Year 2 is $140,424.02. Year 3, $144,636.74. Mr. Green.
Thank you. This was something that we moved into the millage as part of the LIS, Local Instructional Improvement System. The company actually developed the software here in Indian River in 2003 for Mr. Taylor. They inadvertently sent him a standard quote as if we were a new customer, and it was over $300,000. So they've kept the price low for us as we were their first customer. However, there was a 5% increase. We were able to negotiate a 3% increase in the 3 years each year. That's why you see the cost difference over those 3 years, but it's about half the cost of a new customer for the software.
Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Ms. Justice with the motion, Mrs. Zork with the second. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, sir.
Second?
No, thanks.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Action item I, approval to award invitation to bid ITB number 21-0-2018 JC to various vendors for athletic supplies and uniforms district-wide. Dr. Rendell, would you present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And action item I, the purpose and intent of this invitation to bid is to secure firm prices for the purchase and delivery of athletic supplies and uniforms district-wide. The estimated annual financial impact is $87,000. This is a best practice which will allow us to purchase these materials at a discounted price. It's something that we have done in years past. Our last bid expired, so that's why we're doing this.
Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mrs. Simchuk with the motion, Mrs. Zork with the second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
Just, I'm really glad that this has been spread out through so many hometown vendors. And I really do appreciate their support. Not to get specific, but I know several of these vendors who, it's rough. Their Septembers are really rough with embroidery and everything like that. So I want to thank those vendors and thank you again for bidding, and I happily support this.
Okay, second, ma'am? No? Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Add-on item J.1. Approval to award request for proposal RFP 22-0-2018 JC for athletic field management at various sites to Express Rail Grinding Incorporated. Dr. Rendell, would you please explain the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, action item J.1 and action item J are together. Action item J.1 is we're seeking approval to award the RFP. The board may recall that the audit committee reviewed this process of outsourcing this area of work, and their analysis, their realization was that this was a good process to save the district money to outsource this contract. So J.1 is the RFP, and then action item J, which you'll have to vote on separately, is the actual awarding of the contract.
Okay. Per the explanation, entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Mrs. Zork moves approval.
Second.
Mrs. Justice with a second.
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to speak to motion? Second.
Yeah, just thank you to our audit committee. You know, it's something that Mr. Frost brought forward, and we've all been a part of, and I appreciate the audit committee's work on this. And this was an area that was quite an expense, and it's good to know that they've looked into it. So I'm appreciative of that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Searcy.
Is this the same contract for maintaining all the baseball fields and football fields? Is this the same contractor that we've had for the past several years?
I believe the contract's been updated with some additional measures for us to.
Contractor.
Same contractor, yes.
I have a real problem with it. I went over the other day to the school where they had just placed new dirt on one of our fields. And this is what we have on the football field now, the practice field. And I think that it's a huge liability for us. We have to have a meeting every Thursday morning with this firm to make sure that they're doing their job right. You have the purchasing guy, the operations guy, the head football coach, and a bunch of folks that have to go in there just to check to see if the guy's getting the job done. It's ridiculous for us to go back to the same folks that we have to watch every single week to see if they're doing the job. The fields don't look good. This is a liability in itself right here. I can't imagine how the gentleman that selected this group did it. I just can't do it. I won't support it. I've been talking to, of course, Teskey's not here today, about this for a while. And if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, I forgot what they call it, but I think it's insanity. This is not good for this school district. The fields look terrible. The football coach complains about them, and we don't do anything about it. That's a liability right there for us. And for us, this board, to support that is, do what you want to, but I'm not gonna support it. Because we know that it's bad. We know that it's bad. We got some of the best folks in the world that are already on our payroll that could do this same thing, but it's not good.
Mr. Chair,
I recognize Mr.
I'd
Superintendent.
like to ask Mr. Michael to come up to the microphone and talk about the process we went through, the bidding process and everything that ended up with Express Real being the chosen company for the award of the contract for this year. Yeah.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
First, I'd like to address the stones and the rocks that were on the field. That was soil that actually belonged to the district. The contractor was directed to use that soil in one of the fields. I believe it was the 20th Street field. We were aware of the fact that there was rocks there. They're in the process of removing all of the rocks. So this is not uncommon. This could have happened even with our staff doing the same thing. The weekly meetings, they've actually been a benefit. You know, we have our crew go out there. We have the coaches out there. You know, we identify issues before they become issues. This was identified, Mr. Searcy, before the pictures were taken, quite frankly, and there was a plan in place to address it.
My question, if this person that's doing this contract is such a professional, when he saw the rocks falling out of his spreader, why didn't he stop? You know, did he charge us for the dirt that he got from us?
No, that was soil that belonged to us that we provided him for the work.
And in your opinion, can I ask this question, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
In
We're
your
ready for a
opinion,
series of questions.
Sure.
is this contractor maintaining our fields as an expert in the manner that is fitting for our $7 million stadium over there and all the practice fields that we have, that you yourself have said that they need attention?
Sure.
And he's not providing it. Do
No,
you think that's the best we can do?
I believe he's actually doing a good job, Mr. Searcy. We actually reached out to 2 different independent people to look at the fields in April and May. We had soil testing done. We reached out to Dodgertown, Keith Smith. We reached out to Brightview, Ian Rodriguez, who's a PhD from Clemson in agronomy. Both provided reports. Those reports I shared with everyone basically stated overuse of the fields is the issue. We worked with the coach at Vero Beach High School. We've developed a plan to rest the fields, and I believe the fields are looking much better because of that. You know, once again, it's managing a contractor. That's what we do. That's what you pay me to do. That's what I pay my supervisors to do. It's not extra work. It's what we do, whether it was our in-house staff or whether it was a contractor. These issues are day-to-day type of things that we address, and when they happen, we fix them.
Do you have to manage all of your contractors once a week?
In many cases, yes. In many cases, we do. Flooring contractors, I'm on the phone with people 7:30 in the morning and 7:30 at night sometimes to make sure jobs get done. It's just part of what facility management is. Trust me, we weren't happy when we saw the rocks. We addressed it before the pictures were taken, quite frankly. I had pictures sent to me, and we were already aware of it and taking care of the issue. Part of it was that was soil that we had there stored on the site that one of my supervisors instructed them to use. And it could have been soil, to be quite honest with you, that comes from our distributors. He doesn't provide the soil. We usually get it from another vendor. It's in his scope to actually spread it and do that portion of it. We actually supply it. And I know it looks extreme, but trust me, it's being addressed.
It is extreme. It is very extreme. Thank you for using that verbiage, but thank you very much. That's all I've got.
Mrs. Orr first, and then you.
No, just to clarify the rocks. So what I'm understanding is we have a vendor that we had told to use our soil to save money. Is that why we used that soil? Did we have it from another location?
Right. So in our contracts that we write, in this contractor in particular, it's their responsibility to provide the equipment and the labor to do this service. And to save money, we provide the soil. So we use a couple vendors, a couple different vendors when that service is, you know, when it's ready to, as part of the schedule to do. And that's usually delivered to the site, and they use it as they need it.
So it's garbage in, garbage out? I mean, it's not the vendor's
Absolutely,
fault?
absolutely. It's not Express Real's fault. That soil came from us. It came from a different vendor that provided it to us. As soon as they saw it, they notified us. They had a plan in place to address it.
So we've switched vendors to provide a higher quality product for our other vendor to use, to apply?
Yeah, because the soil had
materials.
been on the site for a while, I still need to find out exactly which vendor we use. We have 3 different vendors that usually we reach out to get soil. So, and it had been there for quite a while, so I'm not sure who the vendor was that actually provided that soil.
So when soil comes or arrives to the site, does a district employee provide quality control and assurance?
I can't say they did in that case there, but they will, yeah. in the future.
Obviously, but in a well-operating system, is that how it works?
It should, it should. Now, this comes in a truckload, so obviously you dump a truckload of soil, you don't know what necessarily is inside it.
Sure. Okay, but going forward, we're going to look at the soil
Absolutely.
more closely as it's delivered.
Right.
As part of the weekly. Mrs. Simchek, you're next.
No,
Oh, she
that's-
had a question, then you.
No, I just wanted to let the board know, because, we all support each other in some thought. And I know that when I bring up things about play to pay or something like that, a lot of times I've had people speak to me, but they don't want to say that. So I've say, I have heard, or I have, and so I would like, I'm trying to, I'll say, benefit of the doubt or support perhaps Mr. Searcy is, you have some information that I'd like to know, because if people are complaining, and also I've talked about this before, we have the points here, but like we don't have page 2 of, years in business was 40. I mean, there's 100 points difference between the first and the second, yet I don't understand. Because if it was close, I could say, hey, we don't have to take their recommendation, we could take the next guy. But there is a 100-point difference, so I'm a little nervous about doing that. As I said before, I'd like to see, 50 points for the scope of work, 30 points for years in business, 5 points for reference, and then the names of the companies. It's only a page 2. I've asked for that before. I think it's only fair. It's fair to the companies as well in public information. And some of that is perception, but some years in business isn't, and scope of work is who's ever on your panel.
Right.
But because of the, right here, the over the 100 points, so I want to be able to understand.
Here's
No,
the results.
And I needed like an explanation. Have you in general, or as any board member, because I'd like to know too, you gotta remember, I'm a North girl. I'll know more about. No, I meant Sebastian. I'll know more about Sebastian High School and defer to you getting some insides. You're more apt to go to a football game in Vero, and I'm more apt to go to Sebastian. So I count on my other board members to say, in general, yes, I have heard complaints, or in general. So if you have more information, because he explained the rocks, I'd like to know, because I'd like to, support a thought if it's a genuine complaint. So I don't know that to be, so I have to ask my board.
And I would say, Mrs. Simchek, this was probably the most robust competitive bid process that I've seen since I've been here.
Okay.
We had 5 vendors that actually, last year I believe there was only 3. 2 of the 3 had 0 experience at athletic field maintenance. This year we had 5 people, all 5 had experience. 2 decided, I believe, at the end not to actually provide a proposal. And then we had 2, one was double the price, who maintains the fields up in Brevard County.
But as I said, so overwhelmingly by your point system, this company won. I would have just liked to see how the points were awarded.
Okay. Yeah, I think that'd be something Mr. Carter could provide.
Like it's a very quick little thing, because
Right.
you're only probably doing 5 points of awarding.
Right.
You have 5. That would be just a nice think of it. I would like to see that. Then we could probably engage in more of a conversation on that. But if there's anything else that,
Well, I've already asked Bob. I've already asked Bob if this contractor is doing what he's supposed to do for the contract. And I understand.
Yep.
I understand. Now, you can call it hearsay or whatever, but he's not doing that. In this contract, the one that is in place now, he's not aerating the fields on a regular basis. That's what I understand.
No, he's doing it to the contract.
Yeah, excuse me?
He is doing it to the contract. We actually, that's why we meet weekly. We look at the contract. It has to be done at certain times of the year. The coach won't allow it to be done, obviously, when the
How many
field is
times a
being in
year?
use. I'd have to look at it, but I believe it's twice a
Twice.
year, twice a
Yeah.
year, I believe it's
Twice
being
a
done,
year,
yeah.
yeah.
It has to be, we have to work it around the schedule of the fields. Part of the reasoning for the weekly meetings is we finally got a consensus from the coaching staff to rotate fields, shut fields down. We had a lot of issues earlier in the year, I believe in February, with the lacrosse team. That was strictly because of overuse of the fields, not shutting them down, not rotating them to allow time for the maintenance to be done and for the fields to be healed. That came right out of the report also from both Brightview and Dodgertown. Overuse of the fields was the issue. So I truly believe their fields are much better today than they were last year. I know they're better today than they were in January.
I don't want to quote the athletic director, but I'm going to. He said they're not. And you know, our folks are afraid to come up here and say stuff for retribution. I'm telling you, that's what's going on. So,
I would imagine that if the athletic director feels that his student safety student safety is the number one priority, sir,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Had you brought this to the superintendent's attention before this meeting?
no, I did not.
Okay.
I brought those to show this board what's going on over there. And I'll walk the fields to get that.
Yeah, I just can't in my mind imagine an instance where the athletic director would go to Mr. Michaels and say, I believe my student's safety is at risk, and that our staff is saying to them, well, we don't really care. I mean, or that somehow they would get in trouble for saying they felt their student's safety was at risk. So if that's the case, then perhaps we need to have a sit down and everyone can talk about opening up the lines of communication so that we put students first.
Well, I don't want my student or my grandyoungins playing on that field with those rocks. And I understand that they're going to be mowing them down or something with their lawnmower, and it's just crazy.
Well, no, they're removing the rocks, they're not.
Well, they got a big job.
Right, and there are no students currently, there are no athletes on these fields?
No, those
correct?
fields are closed, the
Right.
ones that we're doing the top dressing.
Okay.
It's a practice field. This is a practice field.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Zork and then Mrs. Simchek.
Yes, I have two questions. So how far back was it that we actually had in-house maintaining the fields? And why did we switch to a private company? Was it just for the dollar savings, or were we having problems with the quality of the work before we switched?
Yeah, and obviously, Mrs. Zork, I've only been here a little over a year and a half, so I can't speak to this precisely. But it's my understanding that there was a lot of injuries prior to outsourcing
what, Bob?
this work. A lot of injuries on the fields prior to outsourcing the work. I believe a risk management study was done, and that was the conclusion that the injuries had actually gone down after the work was outsourced. When I came here, the contract was in place, I believe, 1 year. And I don't deny we did have some issues that we had to resolve. We weren't, Jeff Carver and I weren't responsible for the first contract. There were a lot of issues with the first contract. The one we brought to the board last year, we made a lot of corrections to. The one we're bringing to you this year, we've made even more improvements to. Based on the meetings we've had with Brightview and with Mr. Smith at Dodgertown and the group as a whole on the weekly meetings, we were able to put things in there, the top dressing, the increased aeration, there's an increased fertilization plan. Those were things that the contractor bid off the document, so he was basically providing a service up to that contract. We've increased that level of service now so that some of the problems will be addressed. But it really wasn't in his scope to do the additional services in the previous contracts.
Okay, Mrs. Simchek, you are next.
So, I really do appreciate my fellow board member bringing that forward, but presented with this tonight, which is why I was suggesting with points. So my job is to comfortably to move this forward. You've understood the concern, you see the rocks, we've talked about that, following contracts. I mean, I'm gonna change it to like dry cleaners. You have 5 dry cleaners in town, they all bid to do uniforms, and the top one just doesn't do it well anyway. So I don't know what the situation is. Is this the best and it's just not good enough? I can't tell at this point. There's been some complaints. There are people not happy, it seems. I'm going to count on the contract administrator to be following up on this. But also, as I said, it would be helpful to see, if there was references, if that was a 5-point, and that, it would be helpful to know that. And I'm almost positive that we do sign, everybody on the evaluation committee signs a no conflict of interest form, so I can't think it's a favoritism. I see the points, I see the great gap, and then I make the good judgment, and we bring forward, we float our complaints. But this is a regurgitated complaint, and I feel that it's going to need special attention, but I will support this tonight.
Okay. Mr. Searcy.
One more thing. We have one of the best field managers in the state of Florida on our payroll today. And we're not using him. We got him spraying bugs somewhere. And that's a disgrace. That's a disgrace, Mr. Superintendent. I didn't mean to point that to you, Bob, but.
So noted. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1 with Mr. Searcy dissenting. On to action item J. Thank you, sir. Approval of agreement for contracted services for proposal RFP number 22-0-2018 JC for athletic field management at various sites to Express Real Grinding Incorporated. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Action item J is the award of the actual contract to Express Real. The cost of the district for 1 year is $126,325.
Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Ms. Justice moves approval. I will second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
No, sir.
I have no wish to speak to my second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1 with Mr. Searcy dissenting. Action item K, approval of agreement form for construction contracted services with Major Mulch Installations Incorporated for certified engineered wood fiber playground mulch projects at Glendale Elementary School, Indian River Academy, Liberty Magnet, Osceola Magnet, and Pelican Island Elementary School. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the second group of schools to receive mulch replacement as a result of Hurricane Irma. The cost of the district is $92,492. These costs will be covered by FEMA. Mr. Michael, do you have anything to add? Okay.
Entertain a
To
motion.
approve?
Ms. Sipchick with a motion. Ms. Justice with a second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
No, worthy project.
Second.
Absolutely, I agree.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Action item L, approval of the Educational Plant 5-Year Survey Report 6.1 for 2018 through 2023. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In action item L, we're seeking approval for the Educational Plant 5-Year Survey Report for the years 2018 to years 2023. The survey is a statutory requirement. It's a systematic study of present educational and ancillary plants and the determination of future anticipated needs and improvements to provide appropriate educational programs and services based on projected FTE. The Educational Plant 5-Year Survey Report is adopted every 5 years in accordance with Florida statutes. So we've attached the report for your approval and to send to the state.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Ms. Justice moves approval. Second.
I'll second.
Ms. Simchick, seconds. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
No, sir.
Your second.
No, thank
Any
you.
further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Action item M, approval to increase purchase order authority for routine recurring products and/or services. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In this action item, we are requesting an increase in purchase order authority for Train USA Incorporated in the amount of $200,165 for fiscal year 17-18. The backup material provides information. The board had previously approved purchase order authority for $1 million with Train. If you look at the backup material, it also shows that in the previous year, our purchase authority for Train was $1.2 million. We probably shouldn't have reduced the purchase authority to $1 million because $1.2 million is actually the right size amount. These projects are all on the 5-year capital plan. They all have budget for them, so we just need to be able to increase the purchase authority with Train to issue those purchase orders to get the work done before school starts.
Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Mrs. Justice with a motion. Mrs. Orr with a second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
No, sir.
Your second.
I just think it's very important to get this work done before school starts.
AC is crazy important. Okay, amen. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Action item N, approval of agreement form for construction contracted services with Kemp's Site Development Incorporated for the Alternative Education Center bus loop. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The board may recall, as part of the relocation of the Alternative Center of Education to the site adjacent to the Freshman Learning Center, we need to make modifications to the parking lot for a bus loop. This project was part of the cost estimate and part of the relocation cost. Cost of the project total is $110,027, of which we're seeking approval tonight for $85,727 for the actual construction of the renovations to the bus loop.
Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Ms. Justice was the motion.
Second.
Circle with a second. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, sir. It's very important to get our students in and out of school safely, and we continue to do the work on the new technical college, and it's very exciting. Oh, no. Sorry. I'm sorry.
So excited.
No, yeah, I am excited about the technical college, but I'm excited about the relocation of the Alternative Education Center and to make sure that our students are getting there and getting off the bus safely. So I support this.
Would you like to speak to your second, ma'am?
No, thank you.
Any further discussion? Ms. Searcy, you are recognized.
How is this new bus loop going to affect the Freshman Learning Center?
So this bus loop is on the east side of campus, you know where the portables are, so they'll be coming in off 14th Street and coming in where the old attendance office used to be. So we have to actually, there are some statutory requirements that we have to do some physical improvements so that we can unload students, pick up students on the bus. There has to be curbs and all that kind of stuff.
It's going to be east of the portables?
No, east of the Freshman Learning Center.
East of the Freshman Learning Center, where the loop is, there's a loop out there now. And they're going to tear that up?
No, sir, that the circular loop that's, Nick, if you want to try to explain,
It has an east-west orientation, whereas
Right.
this will have a north-south orientation. Third placement. Mr.
Are you
Westerberger.
familiar with where the concretables are right now? They're
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So just to the west of that, there's a loop in there
Yeah.
on the east side of the Freshman Learning Center.
Yeah.
So basically, in order to get buses through there, we've got to create a turning radius that they can get a bus through there, and then obviously if emergency vehicles need to get through there as well, we can have that.
Okay.
So we're going to do modifications to that loop there. It will not affect the Freshman Learning Center. It'll stay the same, except for the fact that the buses will be coming through there twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon.
And they're going to come off, is that 14th?
14th,
14th?
correct.
And-
No, it's
No.
19th they'll come across.
Yeah, east-west.
Yeah, off of 14th on the backside there, that's where we're going to have a little parent pickup and a parking area.
Okay.
That's Avenue, coming off 19th Street.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
That's where I was confused. Okay.
And it
No
was-
super dip subs, they're not coming back? I'm
Sorry?
just kidding, nothing.
And this was included in the original estimate for that new technical thing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Westerberg. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Action item O, approval of the School District of Indian River County, Florida, continuing services contract for architectural services, Exhibit E, task assignment for the Sebastian River High School Stadium Locker Room Building. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The board may recall that we talked about this item when we were reviewing the five-year capital plan, how we moved some stuff around to make sure we could maintain some important projects. In action item O, we're seeking approval for the task assignment for architectural services with Edlin Drittenbass Binkley Architects and Associates. That's a local architectural firm. For the design of the stadium locker room building at Sebastian River High School. The project will consist of renovations to the existing locker room building, bringing it up to current codes, along with an addition to the existing building of approximately 1,000 square feet. The contract fee total is a not-to-exceed of $82,630.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mrs. Simchek with the motion, Mrs. Chester with the second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
Certainly, and I'm excited about this. This is so overdue, It needs to be done. I remember Mr. Stutsky talking to me about it, as we all get people talking to us about it. And it is well needed, and I'm excited about it. It is in the plan. As we talk about things going up and down the plan, this is really needed, and so I'm excited about this for the community, for the students of Sebastian.
Your second, ma'am?
No, sir.
Any further discussion? Mr. Searcy?
This doesn't include any bleachers, though, for the,
Now we-
The visitor side,
Hey,
that blew away.
Or any paint, but I'll live with the locker room.
I do have two questions about it. On page 1, we show the projected construction cost is $1.4 million. Back over on page 8 of 12, it shows the EBD architect fee based on 8.93% of the $892,250 anticipated construction cost. How much is it?
Yep, I believe Nick can answer those questions.
So the 1.4 million is all inclusive, the 800 and whatever,
892,250.
892 is an estimated cost of construction. We'll have some FF&E items in there, ice machines, trainer tables, things like that, lockers, things like that will be included. So we have a $1.4 million budget, construction budget being walls, all that stuff.
I guess it's good the architect didn't charge us 8 point whatever percentage
Correct.
he gets on the.
Correct, right. So we're
That's a good
not
move,
being
Nick.
charged for the FF&E items.
That's a good move, Nick. Thank you.
Or surveys, things like that go in.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mrs. Simchick,
Thank
you're
you.
recognized.
I know you were jokingly talking about the bleachers, but I do want to, and we'll know this from graduation. You know how Friday night in graduation, the students, so the parents could not see, there's the Jumbotron, and you could see the kids shake, and it's a big scoreboard, and then you go over to Sebastian. Boy, it's pretty rickety-tickety. And I'm going to shout out to community partners as well as, the booster clubs. It's very hard for, again, we have TV because there's more attendance, more gate fees, and then we have down here. So since this may not come up when I'm around, I'm just, in the future, we have committed to look at the play to pay and things like that. But as we look at that, an athlete, it's not just the clothing and it's not just the fields, it's also the scoreboard. As well as I said, there's quite a difference, thank you, during graduation, where there's a parent way up in the stand and it's kids like this. And, I said, you could definitely see the difference between the two schools. I have to point it out again. But I know it's not part of this project, but thank you for indulging me.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Add-on, action item P, approval to terminate support staff employee. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're seeking approval to terminate the employee identified in the attachment.
Thank you. Entertain a motion?
Move to approve.
Mrs. Zork with a motion.
Second.
Mrs. Justice with a second. Would you like to speak to the motion, ma'am?
No, thank you.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we are through with our action item. We are on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Rendell, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd actually take a few minutes to recognize the contribution to our school district and our community by two people who will be not at any of these future board meetings, at least not in the capacities that they are in right now. As has been mentioned earlier, both Dr. Jones and Mr. Green will be moving on. I first met Dr. Peggy Jones in 2004. She was the principal at Sebastian River High School, and I was the principal at Titusville High School. And we actually had a football scheduling conflict. Our two head coaches disagreed on where we were going to play a game. And it took the two principals to sit down and come to a solution. And one of the things I remember from Dr. Jones at the time was she was going to fight tooth and nail for her school no matter what. And that's something that's definitely been exemplified in her work in our district for many, many years. When I called her a year ago and asked her to come out of retirement to help us fill this new position that we created, I didn't actually have to beg too much because she loves this district and she loves these students. And so her impact has been felt not just by students but by employees. And Mr. Brown referenced her today when he was making his acceptance monologue. But I would just like to give a round of applause and thank Dr. Jones for all of her service. And there were already already some very nice comments made about Bruce Green, and Bruce is one of those people that is a people person. You know, we are actually in the human being business. We teach young children every day, but we work with adults. And so you have to have the right characteristic, the right personality, the right demeanor to be successful in our business. And Bruce definitely has that. He is certainly a people person. He is someone that everybody who works with him enjoys working with him, feels like they are better from being around him. So he has made a significant contribution to the district. I did not meet him in 2004, but he did actually begin work in the district in 1997 as a teacher at Fellsmere Elementary, and stayed with the district for a few years, then left to work in private business and then came back. Much like Dr. Jones, his impact has been felt not just with teachers, but also with fellow employees, colleagues, and parents, and everybody else that he comes in contact with. So, you know, Bruce is leaving to go pursue some personal adventures, some things that he wants to go and do. So we wish him luck in those new adventures, but we definitely want to thank him for his time and his commitment to our district. So, Bruce. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we are on to item 9, discussion, add-on items. Governance up first, action, or discussion item A, governance issue, audit committee member, Mrs. Simchek, you're recognized to present your item.
Thank you, and you know, as it's a discussion, I made 2 clear points, but they really quite merge and interact with each other. I know that the last meeting, I talked generically about procedure and, you know, collegiate and, you know, just good government, and that was as a board. Neither one of us would use staff, and it was a collegiate conversation. That collegiate board thought does extend to committees. So anything, first of all, as I didn't name names, and I'm generic, and I'm certainly not saying that anybody did anything malice or anything like that. But sometimes board committees, and as I said, you know, we have a scope of work, we pass it off to the board, or the committee is supposed to digest it together and then come back with a recommendation. If you go, and I pulled it, you know, had backup as the, you know, as I say, the interplay, under, it talks about the committee, how it's comprised, but it says the board will provide adequate support to the audit committee as a, you know, plural. And the board, with the advice and the counsel of the audit committee, shall ensure that the auditors, meaning auditors, have unrestricted reasonable access to the district personnel and public documents within legal requirements. It's not one person to be tasking staff in the same as I'm speaking about an audit committee member. It is not for staff to be placating to one member. It is not for staff, who I've been told staff has said, let me run it by this member, and before I bring it to the board. And I've spoke to that, you know, I heard, and I went to that staff member, and they said, I see your point, won't do it again. I also talked to Dr. Rendell, so I didn't just run to staff. I've also understood that as we have, you know, we received an email about recommendation, but it was from a member using the title of a member, but not as a member, so please disregard my member, but I did all this work and all these spreadsheets, but signed it as you know, using their position instead of as a, you know. So there's a lot of muddy waters here. It's not worth, because moving forward, in this process, you know, and also understand that the audit committee, and we just went over this and I pulled it out today, audit committee recommendations, we haven't gotten but one, and it wasn't even the one we asked for, but we got one, but we didn't get a complete per our, you know, thing. Now, sad to say I'm leaving. I think we all know that. And we have 3 spots. So we have new board members that will most likely have their new appointees. And I, as I had talked generically with my board members, I wouldn't want our consensus to be, as we leave the table, turned into a single consensus by any one of you, nor would I want to do that to you. I don't want a board member to do that, a committee member to do that to the rest. I have a committee member that I would like to see involved when a committee, an email comes forward to us. Although, you know, a citizen has 3 minutes there and can certainly write an email, but when they use their titles, it starts to get, then you wonder if they use their unlimited, you know, and I'm not wondering, I'm not accusing, I'm just saying, let's be clear. We have a policy that says that this committee, the audit committee, is to come to us and I highlighted the back, at least once per year, the audit committee will present public report to the board. We haven't had our public report. And sad to say, I have heard, and I hope they're good, I'm sure our staff thinks they're good, but I have been told by staff that the recommendations that were made at these quarterly meetings were immediately enacted, some of them, and they haven't come before us. So I'd like to hear, and they're probably good, because if staff was wise enough to adopt, but I'd like to hear them in a report. So I'm hoping that that's the substance of my A and B combined. As I said, I went generic. I don't choose, unless you really need that, to go specifically, but I'm hoping that my board will get a consensus to go back to our committee, to ask them for their report, and thank them, so we can thank them for their work, because their work and that landscape, just like this landscape's gonna change, I'm hoping that, you know, not hoping, I know, that their landscape will change, and so that committee's gonna change. I'd like to be able to thank my committee member properly, and it usually would come at the end of a yearly report. So I'm hoping that we could get a consensus from today to give, you know, even though it's in our policy, a shout-out direction to say, please bring us a report of everything you've done to date, and then we can then properly, hopefully, maybe they'll all attend that evening, and we can thank them all. I don't know, but that's what I'm asking for tonight.
It's like you're reading my mind. No, actually.
You know, I looked at that and I said,
Actually, and this is, and I'll take the blame on this for coordinating with the chair of the audit committee with schedules and things like that. We'd hope to maybe have the report at the last meeting and then maybe tonight. But what was sort of decided or whatever is kind of to your point. I think we all have that feeling of we'd like to not only hear what's happened, but celebrate and thank, in particular, our audit committee members. And I've talked with Dr. Rendell about this, getting it on the July, our meeting in July, where we'll also give them a nice little certificate or something and thank them and give them an opportunity to present their findings and, you know, to your point, mostly thank them and capture best practices and I think communicate some expectations going forward and lessons learned for, you know, the members who will continue on. And yes,
just wanted to add, and I have listened to since we started, audit tape committee
all one
meetings.
of it.
And there was actually a board member, a committee, I keep saying committee member that said, you know, we've gone over everything that they've kind of tasked us with. We really have done our work. We really should, you know, sunset. And I think that's true because a new committee is a new committee. So that was even one of their suggestions, yet minus we haven't had the report. So I thank you for agreeing.
And, you know, sunshine is what it is, so I couldn't call you with that information or anything. Mrs. Justice, you
Yeah,
wanted to speak?
when I look at the group of some of the work products that have happened, come out of some of the committees, those types of recommendations have come in a workshop format. We've had a workshop. I would be much more comfortable if we're going to, I think recognizing them at July 24th at the business meeting is appropriate, but if we're going to talk about findings and recommendations, I'd like to do it in a workshop setting so we can ask questions and kind of, you know, have more of a conversation about the findings rather than this, which is always really hard.
Especially with 5 people, five committee members and then 5 of us.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've all appointed someone, and just much like we don't hold weight more than another board member, they don't either, and I just would like to see, you know, I mean, I know we're asking them to come and then come back again that night to be recognized. If they don't want to do that, that's fine, but, you know, I would be more comfortable in like a workshop setting. personally.
Members?
I just want to make a comment. Is that okay?
Sure.
I believe there's been, 4 audit committee meetings, and I think I've read the minutes of all but one. And what I recall, I wasn't really prepared for this conversation, is they wanted to review the process of the credit card, the P cards, where are the securities on that? And staff presented that, and I feel from my memory, the audit committee was satisfied and they had asked their questions. So there wasn't a recommendation for that. They looked into outsourcing. Was that beneficial? Were we saving money versus in-house? So I believe that the audit committee was happy with the questions after they were answered. So there hadn't been any recommendations as far as I know, based on what I've observed and read in the minutes, except for the last one. And that was a recommendation that was brought forward. But yeah, I'm definitely interested in seeing the yearly report to see what they want to bring to us and recommend. But I believe I got the same email that you got. Did everyone get the same?
Yeah, we're all copied.
I read right there where it said as an individual and not as a representative of the audit committee. So I didn't take it that he was representing the audit committee in that way. I know we're all members of different groups and organizations, and just because I send an email out to a group, I'll send it out as Laura Zork and not as a member of that group. And so I didn't have any problems with him sending those recommendations. I actually appreciated the research. So
Yeah, and I agree. When in future engagements, and that's something that the next board can decide, I would just like to see if there is a recommendation like what we had received via email. I would like to have it be in that type of a workshop format so we could have discussed the recommendation, because we kind of just made a decision on that recommendation, and it wasn't taking into account everything that they had brought forward. Their recommendations went beyond what we had asked, and then when we reviewed it, like the in-house counsel, we said we don't want to go, but in a workshop setting, we could have talked about it. Where in this, it's very difficult to have that conversation, and, everyone brings, the 5 committee members bring something, and the 5 board members bring something to that, so.
Well, this is one of those things where we have to strike the balance of transparency and efficiency. You may recall that, and certainly the 3 of us recall, when we had board member discussions that were before our first Tuesday meeting, and then we had, things that staff present, superintendents discuss, or workshops, excuse me. So we had board member workshops, and then we still have our superintendent workshops, but the way the flow worked would have been, and in fact, we gave our reports from like planning and zoning, we gave our reports from MPO and things like that. So that's sort of fallen off since we moved everything into prime time. So that's something the board should maybe consider after November, whether it makes sense to go back to having a board discussion. But all points well taken. Mr. Searcy.
Well, I don't recall giving a challenge to the people on what day they should bring their annual report to us. Maybe they're preparing that as we speak.
They are, sir, and they have been.
So I'm just saying, nobody has given these folks instructions on July the 24th. We want your report of what your findings are.
That's what I'm looking for tonight, sir.
Well, it's not, did you give them a date?
No, I'm asking with my peers, could we call for a report?
Yes, the
The
chairman.
the
Sure.
person on the tape, one of the committee members said, we've done about everything, we've done the work, let's disband. And that was one of the board members. So before they disband, and we're still here till at least November, I want to hear and again, if the board chairman wants to report collegiately on what the board recommendations were collegiately as the board saw it, I would love to hear that. And if my board committee member can't make it to the workshop, if you want it. I don't care where the forum is.
Okay, so you're okay with it?
I just would like to hear what, because again, not trying to tell tales out of school, I had a staff member specifically tell me that some of the recommendations have already been instituted. And I don't know what they are, and I didn't get in a long conversation, but I would love to hear what the board has said, that, you know, some of the policies, some of the way they do things. So maybe it's not clear, maybe it's a minor thing, but I would love to hear the collegiate board's recommendations of their year work since I'm leaving. Let me put it this way, since I'm leaving.
Right.
I would like to hear, you know, I'll work right up until the day I'm not supposed to. And I would, that's all I was asking for tonight. If they're
Sure.
planning it and you know the date, Mr. Searcy or Mr. Frost, please
Yes.
let me know. If not, let's direct the group as a whole to come up with that, you know, final report.
Well, I've had a preliminary discussion with the chairman to see if, to poll, you know, whether attendance would be possible at the July business meeting. But I like the idea of having it in the workshop as well. If there's, and that's mostly for the presentation and to thank them, but it'll actually streamline things if we do the report during the day. Or maybe there's a workshop and then a truncated version of a presentation in the business meeting so that, you know, the greater populace gets a sense.
But, Matt?
Sure.
To speak to Mr. Cersey's point, I think that this is similar to some of the other committee situations we've had where the scope of the work or the definition of the timetable and what the expectations are, we haven't always been clear enough. So I think it's just probably a word of caution going forward that, you know, there needs to be some, if we're going to reconvene a committee like the audit committee to say, and there shall be a, you know, it says that there should be an annual report. So the onus is on us to then say, and it will be presented at the July, whatever, or the August meeting, or if you want it to be in the October meeting, you know, if you're looking at the cyclical nature of the way the board works. I don't.
Let me just, thank you for recognizing me. Let me just say this. Unfortunately, it is a off year, and there are 3 votes coming in. The new board may say, we don't want this committee. So, as I was saying, there is a, there is a season for everything. I think as you, what was your title? Board
Poetic.
planning or something? Board succession planning. There,
yeah.
there is 3 new seats coming in. That new board is up to that new board, which even though you'll still be on the board, it's a new board.
Sure.
The same thing with you. So that is for you guys to toss out and toss up and around and all about. But for now, as a board member who has a committee member who I want to be respected collegiately and to hear his voice as a collegiate body in a report back to us, so I know his work and others and their efforts. I would like, you know, I'm assuming that the chairperson is going to give that report. I mean, that's why we have chairpersons, usually, to keep that order. But I don't care the forum in which we hear the report. That was the purpose that, in that group thought, as I said, if we could give direction to the audit committee as a group, not just the chairman, but the whole group, that this is our task, we'd like you to finalize. It doesn't have to be July 24th. I'm just saying, somebody said July 20th, but soon, you know, because it's falling through, you know, we've got budgets and all sorts of stuff. You're right, Mr. Searcy, but I would like us to send that out and let them in their timeline decide when they want to present. People could be on vacation.
Okay, thank you. That's good. So what's the preference on workshop versus business meeting? Mrs. Ork, would you like to weigh in?
I do. I always like engaging in conversation, asking questions, and it is a more of a casual environment to be able to engage in conversation and bounce ideas back and forth. So I do like the idea of the workshop.
Okay, so what we'll do is we will give direction to the audit committee to find a time and also work with Dr. Rendell as to when it works on our workshop schedule. We don't want to have 35 things on there and then only have 5 minutes for that opportunity. So I think that Dr. Rendell and everyone has the...
Just off the top, July 26th is going to be packed for the workshop.
Okay. So maybe August or September.
Probably.
Okay. As long as we're, you know, the idea is that we're wrapping this thing up, to Mrs. Simchek's point. we're putting a bow on this thing and standing the committee down, getting a final report, and at some point praising them and thanking them for all their hard work.
Just a
Make sense?
point.
Mrs. Orr?
Without a committee being volunteers, I really would like us to give them the preference, so when they're.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you.
Yeah, at whatever point in the future, they can make it work and it doesn't crowd our agenda. Okay? Great. Anything further on your item, Mrs. Searcy?
I want to make sure she was finished here, but a question that I would have, and maybe it's a suggestion for, I was going to say the hereafter, but those that come after us, in situations like this, we need to be very specific in the directions that we give to boards or committees or whatever, and ask for specific reports on, I mean, if they've done the report that Laura talked about on the credit cards or whatever, I don't think that we ought to wait until the end of the year to get that. If we charge them with the responsibility of looking at the credit card program and how it's working, ask them to come back with their recommendations or whatever at the end of next month or whatever.
Quarterly, maybe?
Whatever it might be, but just waiting till the end of the year to do it doesn't make sense because they lose interest in stuff. But the biggest thing that I want to say is, I just hope that we don't, by this conversation, scare people off from being on our committees. That concerns me a lot.
I'm not trying to scare, and I'm
Sure.
not trying to scare people off, because it interacted
discussion.
with staff. To hear from staff that they took recommendations directly from the committee, that's the part that,
That's our weakness. That's our weakness. If
well-
our staff implemented those charges, and is it okay to talk amongst?
Sure,
us?
yeah, we're in discussion, just don't talk over each other.
That's a weakness on the part of our staff.
of course.
And we should be criticizing them, I guess, to the superintendent, but I didn't hear that charge, but if they took that, then that's a problem that the superintendent needs to address with them.
And it was.
Okay.
And now
Handle it,
I
handle
let
it.
my peers know. And I brought it all, that's why I combined A and B, and I did not, I have, feelings aren't facts, but public discussion, and that's actually, here we are in the public, and we're discussing this stuff, sir. Hopefully, moving forward, you make changes and things get clearer and better. And if we've made any mistakes, we certainly can flush them out at this time, too. So, again, you may not have heard that part, and that was the part that I painfully had to bring up.
Well, my last comment to you, if you have a problem with anything that I've said, here is a weapon you can use on me.
I can't throw the first stone, as Jesus would say.
Well, there's two
Cane.
of them. I get the
Move
big
from
one. I
boards
get the
to
big
rocks
one.
now. I don't know
Right.
what that's.
Show and tell, we got mineralogy, geology. Come,
My gosh.
okay,
I heard you thick-headed,
okay, are we finished with that discussion, ma'am? Okay, very good. Okay, the next one is mine, superintendent's evaluation process and contract. As you know, we're in the evaluation process. You should be receiving our new standardized form that's tied to our strategic plan that we've already approved in a previous meeting for Dr. Rendell. You'll receive that,
Monday, July 2nd is the date they receive the
Okay.
template.
right, Monday, July 2nd is the day you'll receive the template, and then I believe you have until the 13th or 14th to
Correct.
get them to me, and then I aggregate them and come up with a recommendation that will be presented at the July, the 24th board business meeting, and we'll vote on the final evaluation. As far as the contract goes, Dr. Rendell has reached the end of his first 3-year contract. We did have the one automatic rollover, and just a note that the way his contract is structured, and Mrs. Teogresta, feel free to jump in, it will, unless this board takes action, it will roll forward for 1 more year, as that is automatically implemented in the contract. So I just wanted to revisit that concept that his evaluation is due, the data is coming out, and that his contract will auto-renew unless this board takes action. So that's the item. Mr. Simchick.
Will you be, or will our assistant be emailing us those forms?
Yes. Mrs. Espin will
Thank
email
you.
the
So we
forms,
can get
the new
started.
template.
So we could get started? Okay. And then there's a part, I believe, when are they returned by, July 24th?
13th.
July 13th. The timeline is you're to receive the template on July 2nd. We can get you the template later this week.
Yeah,
It's already established, it's blank, it's on a Word document. You know, I can have Nancy send it to you guys tomorrow.
Right,
Yes,
it's
please
no
do,
later than the
Because I
2nd.
believe tied with that, sir, is also that we meet with the superintendent, that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that would give us time to do that before the, oh gosh, I forgot what you just said, the 13th?
13th,
Thank you.
yes.
And then the other thing was, then after that, what was the timeline if we don't take action for the automatic rollover?
Mrs.
date.
Degrest, I believe it was directed at you. To you.
If you remember, board members, you slightly revised Dr. Rendell's employment agreement, and it was by July 31st of each year. So if you're only planning to have your July 24th meeting, you would need to either take official action then or call a special meeting before July 31st.
So if we don't take action, he is into the final year of his contract, guaranteed? No.
If the school board takes no action by July 31st, Dr. Rendell's employment contract will automatically add another year to the end, and it goes until June 30 of 2020. Currently, Dr. Rendell's contract now goes through 2019,
Right.
June 30 of 2019.
Okay. Everyone understand that? Mr. Searcy?
I understand that, but I would imagine, just for Ms. Simchek's benefit, when the superintendent sends us that template, he's probably going to have the instructions written in there, specific instructions, what day.
Thank you for helping.
I thought I'd help you out there, Brian, but I just have faith that he'll do that for us, by the way. What day you got to have it back, what day we got to do all that stuff. So.
Mrs. Esplin, you're taking notes, I'm sure. She does a great job. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yes.
Just for the board's knowledge, before the end of the week, what you're going to get is what's called a self-assessment with all of the people in leadership positions in the district, principals, assistant principals, district leaders. Our evaluation process that we've implemented a couple years ago requires them to do a self-assessment. So they basically rate themselves and then present it to their evaluator as part of the evaluation process. So before the end of the week, you'll receive my self-assessment. By the timeline, you're supposed to receive a report to you on my progress on my goals. So all that's going to be part of the self-assessment. You'll receive probably Thursday or Friday. So the self-assessment, I will actually use the same evaluation tool that you'll be using. So I'll fill out a self-assessment, grade myself, so to speak. That's what we ask the other leaders in the district to do. So I'll be doing that as part of the information that we prepare for you. And as I said earlier, you'll need to do your assessment by July 13th. It is recommended in the language that you meet with me. I don't think it's required, but it's recommended that you meet with me prior to July 13th to share your ratings. And then you give that all to the chair, and then he or she combines that somehow.
Okay. Very good. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? No. Very good. Okay. Next is board succession planning. As of noon last Friday, it became apparent that there will be 3 seats that are turning over, and there'll be 3 brand-new people up here in November. So in thinking about that, I got to, good leaders kind of leave a succession plan forward or whatever. So I got to thinking about what opportunities I had when I first came on the board and when I'm chairman and all of those things. And there's a rumor out there that there exists a binder that Carol Johnson made. And I don't have it as chair, but this legendary tome contains all of her wisdom as to what it means to be the chair. So I was going to ask the previous 2 chairs, because this is really kind of the only place I could do this. Does anyone have that binder?
I never got a binder.
You never got a binder?
Prior to me, it was Matt McCain.
Oh, that's right.
I never heard of a binder. And the only thing, I never heard of a binder, and I can tell you that usually that's the decision of picking a chair is usually someone who can learn quickly, and so I'm sure the new board will figure that out.
Okay. Mr. Searcy, you didn't have a binder? You never got Carol Johnson's
What they
binder?
gave me was a code of conduct and said that you better abide by it.
I'd take that at this point. I didn't even get that,
I don't know
so
about
that
any
explains a
binder.
lot. Explains why, I'm up here getting things wrong. Okay, and another opportunity I had when I first came on board is Chair Johnson called publicly noticed meetings with me when I first came on board and presented the opportunity to kind of just go over whatever. They were publicly noticed, but it was really just the two of us, or sometimes, and Mrs. Stang, Ms. Stang. And I don't know if there's any interest in that, but when I was talking with Ms. DiAgresta about the whole legality and sunshine and everything, she said, after November, you're not under sunshine, so they can call you anytime and ask. But I just figured I'd offer that up as an option for the two remaining board members if they wanted to have those publicly called meetings that are really just in a small group to kind of ask questions or whatever. And of course, invite the other veterans to those meetings as well to present their wisdom, just kind of around being the chair and taking up the mantle and running with it. But certainly, that's just an option in thinking about ways to be helpful. So that's really, all my thoughts on that is I wanted to find that binder. I really want to see, I wonder if she has it. I'll actually reach out to her and see if maybe she has a Word copy of it or something to see what's in there. But I know she was big on protocol. She was very big on parliamentary procedure. So I'd love to see what her thoughts were on being chairman. Mrs. Simchak.
Just so because I don't know if maybe Ms. Zork can see from there. I don't know if Mrs. Justice can see, and I hate to be like the wizard and blow the curtain, but we're handed a script and the gavel, and the script,
Right.
it's not the same as what's in our book. Then you'll ask, then you'll do this, then you'll do that. So
I get the teacher's edition.
I'm sure they'll, hey, you two have tag team, so I'm not saying nothing. He
Yeah.
keeps score.
Well, it's like baseball, right? You have the official scorekeeper, and then you have other scorekeepers, so, yes.
When
Miss-
we're ready, I have an item for discussion that I'd like to.
Okay, sure. Well, that was it for me. I just wanted to kind of put that out there and think about it. Mrs. Orr.
Just, there is, through one of the organizations, there is a chair, how to properly run a meeting. Have we missed that? I mean, for the November, because I know they offer it after November, but are you aware of?
No, they don't offer it until after new boards are
Right.
seated. Yeah, they offer chairmanship 101 and new board member training, so. So that's an option, yes, certainly. Okay, anything else on that topic? No? Very good. Mrs. Justice, you're recognized for a discussion item?
Yes, sir. Tonight, in action item A with the public hearing and regarding the student code of conduct, one of the things that was included in there was a change in dress code for our high schools. That's something that I just wanted to address quickly because I want to make sure that we're communicating that properly with parents as school will be starting in a month and a half. And I want to give them time. So I just wanted to have a discussion to make sure that, and to ask Dr. Rendell publicly how that will be communicated to parents. I know the initial recommendation was shorts and a golf shirt. And my daughter, I thought, might have a heart attack because and so I know that it was brought back to a plain, no symbols, no graphics, no writing. But I believe there are certain things that are allowed, spirit shirts and those types of things. So just a question and I guess a discussion I wanted to bring up. How will that be communicated to parents? I would imagine through schools.
It actually will start right away. Social media first, we'll put some stuff out on Twitter, Facebook. We'll put something on the website about changes to the dress code. And then we'll start to work with the two high schools. And really the change in the dress code, two high schools and Sebastian River Middle School are the only schools that don't already have basically the uniform dress in place already. So those are the populations that we'll target to make sure they understand what the changes to the dress code are. When we get ready for orientation and registration, open house and all those things, we'll make sure that we've communicated ahead of time what the expectations are and we'll have examples there and that kind of thing. I was in St. Lucie County several years ago when we made some changes to the dress code, so we had to communicate that throughout the summer and as we open school. So we'll do the same sort of thing.
I just didn't want to, I wanted to make sure we weren't going to wait until July, the July meeting where we approve it. I wanted to give parents some time to, you know, be aware of it.
Good point. Mrs. Simchak, you want to speak?
Because I've had something on there if somebody doesn't, but I did want to add one more thing on discussion that
Sure.
one of the speakers brought up, if I could.
Sure. Mrs.
'cause-
Justice, are you finished? with
Sure.
that?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
Yep.
So we heard from a couple of speakers tonight about maybe a change of use for a building in the city of Zero. Zero, excuse me.
Freudian slip.
Zero, really, are you bringing back Zero Beach? I thought we
Zero
had so much going on, we had killed that.
No wonder you don't have any clout down
goodness.
here. That's right.
I got no clout down here, that's right. But what I wanted to ask was, is somebody, I don't know who is in our group is sitting on Vero Planning and Zoning. I could tell you, by the way, because we got away from committee members, the packet from Sebastian is detached garage, you know, whatever. So, nothing, there's been no news. So, and I'm not sure of the procedural. I had only heard, you know, when you speak on Dr., whatever his name.
Dr. Seuss?
Dr. Seuss.
Bob
Dr.
Seuss.
Booth. I had heard something about this, but I also got an email because Coach Buddy Young had coached my child, and he also blasted about this particular river house turning into. I also know, just from being on so many planning and zoning boards, that there's so many. So just to dive back in memory, if you guys are familiar with Sebastian, there's a little village of shops that I think it's the same owner that is on the A1A. And there's a little church like up there and before the village shops. And why those shops never do well, it's just a statistical thing, is you can't have it in the town ordinance, the city ordinance, a bar so many feet next to the church. And I'm not, you know, I'm just laying out similar things. So I feel our speakers tonight were coming out and saying, this is not good. They were appealing to us as school board members, and that there's a school and, you know, there is a kids park and all that too. I agree with them. I don't know if it's against the zoning because they mentioned something about 700 feet or whatever, but who's ever on, I think even though it's being kind of talked in early stages, because I'm sorry, I don't know his name, Howie.
Harry Howell.
Harry Howell.
Harry Howell.
Mayor Howell.
You're
I
terrible
heard
with
him
names.
speak. Wow, everybody came up. It was just a discussion, you know, how we had a few weeks ago, deja vu, just a discussion, throwing it out there. But it seems like it might be taking traction because now it's made it over to our board. So I don't get that cable and I can't watch that. And I only heard it on the news radio and then I got the email. So I'm just asking who is ever on Vero Beach Planning and Zoning to keep an eye on that packet. And please let us know because it could disintegrate or it may not. But I would like to know. I'll try to keep abreast myself, but I don't get the paper. But I would like to know what the zoning is and if they're asking for new zoning or anything. I would just like to know the facts of all that. So whoever's handling, is that?
I think that's Mrs. Ork, isn't it?
Yeah, if you could, when you get a packet, because inevitably, if it gets traction, you'll get a packet that will include it on it.
So I have a question. Before it goes any further, how does the board feel about the brewery being there?
So I don't have any feelings about it per se. There is an ordinance, it's section 60.16, restriction on location of establishments dealing with or in alcoholic beverages, and it says 500 feet. So there is an ordinance in place, it's 500 feet. The river house is 801 feet, so it's outside of the 500 feet, so it would be allowed, I would imagine. And the other location is within the 500 feet, so if we're just dealing with ordinances and not feelings but facts, it wouldn't be allowed to be there. You know, I would expect the city council, as I would expect our board to hold up those ordinances and to not make exceptions to them. And so, you know, I don't have a feeling about it. I would just say if it's outside of 500 feet, it sounds like it's allowed. If it's within, it's not.
But,
Mrs. Simchak.
I'm sorry, no, Mr. Searcy.
Oh, no, yield to you, you go ahead.
Well, I don't know the facts about that because it might not just be a plain fee. It could be a special use permit. I'm not sure of all that. That's why I want to, I'm sorry, we can't take, but we'll be on top of it. I'm just saying, I would like to direct, I would like to know when it comes up, and we can flush it out, because it's a moot point if it doesn't gain traction, it doesn't get up. We're aware now because people came forward, although it might be, that is the rule, but that piece of property might need a special use permit, and therefore, I would want to know when it comes up. So if it comes up on an agenda that you may receive, could you let our executive assistant know? And then I will, and bring back any feedback, but I will start then knowing that I'll start to, like you said, you had no feeling, I'll start to review the facts. I think that we should keep it within our radar, and that's what I wanted to say.
Mr. Searcy.
I think time is of the essence on this thing, because I think that's gonna come up real soon. But my question is, what does Florida statute say about that, Madam Attorney? Is there a number of feet that we have to, or can we have bars next to our schools, or?
There is a specific statute that deals with an establishment that only sells alcohol, and it's a requirement that it can't be within 500 feet of a public school. But the statute goes on to describe what's accepted out, or what would be allowed if it's a restaurant that also serves alcohol, and the food portion or the food revenue from the restaurant is at least 50% or more of the revenue from the restaurant, then it's only incidentally selling alcohol, and so that would be allowed to be closer to a school. So it really is a zoning issue. The city may have enacted different, more strenuous requirements than what the statute's kind of your floor, and your municipality or county could have a heightened requirement. So it really does depend upon what the city has adopted for that area.
And I guess a follow-up, within 500 feet of a school, that site where this, possibly at the Waddell Insurance building, where that brewery, and it's a brewery, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of brew there, but is it 500 feet from the corner of our property, which we've got like 20 acres over there, and the school is way up on the, near US 1, or whatever that road is there.
So, Mr. Searcy, I actually was contacted that is my district, District 5, and I was contacted about this, so I did in fact reach out to the Facilities Department to ask some questions about it, and it is in fact the edge of our property to what I believe is the entrance of the actual location, not the edge of their property. So that is the distance, that is how the distance is calculated.
From the edge of our property?
From the edge of our property, the closest property line to that location.
But I don't want to get our kids drinking too early, but I think that if this board probably needs to take a stand on that, if the law says if it's within 500 feet, then we need to
It's
be.
past 500. The speaker said it was 700.
One of the locations
One
is
of them, so
passed,
that's
and
the
then the
River
other
House.
location is within,
The
it's like
Waddell
380
building.
feet.
Oh,
That's like 380 feet or
Waddell
something.
building is closer, but we need to take a stand on it. Maybe it's a good place for our kids to work or something, I don't know, but that's not.
Are you
the
putting
point.
elementary
The
school
point is,
students
we need to take
In a
a
bar,
firm stand
in a
on
brewery.
it. We need to take a firm stand on that, this board does, or that's one board member's opinion.
No, I agree with you, and
You did.
I do, and I want to say that if it's, definitely, it's a no-brainer if it's below the 500 feet.
Yeah.
But this is what I wanted to extend, and why I said we need to know the facts. That use of property, and I'll give you some of my experience about that wild turkey mine. Oh, I don't even want to go there. But the wild turkey mine that was digging deep to bring the sand out to renourish the beach and everybody, and they needed a special permit, a special permit. And they were saying that, you could get a farm stand or what, just the guy on the side of the road, that needs to be a special permit. And they were like, no, so it was a very passionate public issue. And the county commissioners had, through public sway, or through, their own consensus, able to vote for this mine or not the mine, because it was of the special use of the property. So this board, I agree, Mr. Searcy, if it comes up too fast, we do have to have, if it's within the law, it's hard to say I know what you're saying, we could say it, but it won't gain any traction because they're within the statute and within the law. But if it goes into an area where this is a special use and the city is rezoning, and I don't even know if that's true, but those type of things, then we have all the right to say, I know it's more than 500, if it's the one location and not the other, and it's the 700-foot one. We have every right to say, no, do not give that special permit. We don't like that near our school. We have a right to say that if we have consensus. If they're going to grant a special permit, then we have a right to voice our opinion. They have a right to not listen, but we have a right to consensus say that. That's why I say I would like to stay on top of this, but I don't know what that property is, and this position, that position, it's a new subject. I'm not informed. When it comes up on the calendar, I want to know so I could research myself.
That's coming up real soon.
Is it coming
Very,
up
very
before
soon.
July?
It's coming up, I think, before our next.
I trust, I imagine,
She got the
Mrs.
research.
Yeah, Mrs. Zork.
Do you know if it's coming out? Is it on an agenda you've seen published?
I have not seen it yet. I haven't seen it.
And will it have to go back to their planning and zoning? Because council is one thing, doesn't it have to go back to their planning and zoning?
Well, it goes to P and Z, and then P and Z is an advisory body, and the advisory body, you are on city council.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There is.
What am I doing talking to you about this?
No,
I
but there
apologize.
is time.
But no, I mean, so there is that process that's in play, and certainly, stepping outside of the,
July.
so stepping outside of the law, this is the age-old and current and forever probably argument of state preemption versus local control. And the state statute says 500 feet, and the only way that they open this facility is if there's local preemption to the state statute. So I certainly would join my fellow board member in saying, the state statute. But by the same token, we talk about local control. I don't want the city of Vero Beach telling us how to run our schools and how to use our easements and things like that. So be very careful in stepping on their toes, especially since they fund 100% our SROs. Not that that's the point, but the point is that we have our jurisdiction. Our governing body is such that we deal with the schools. And we expect the state statute, my understanding and my belief is that we expect the state statute to hold.
You just wrote the letter.
Right. Okay, I can do that. It's, if,
When's our next meeting? It's July?
24th, July 24th.
Our next?
Yes. We only have one meeting a month in July forever,
Okay.
and also December.
So July 17th, there is going to be something on the city council agenda, but I'll have to send that out for clarification of exactly what it is.
So if we are all in agreement at this meeting, consensus that we want the minimum of the state statute, and again, I'm not saying that we understand that there might be some issues. We hope they're familiar with the state statute on schools, and we hope that they respect that state statute. If this board consensus has that, and there is, again, Mr. Frost, if you're signing for us, I trust your wordcraft and wordsmith in the most politest way. If we have, at the very minimum at this meeting, to say, please respect the minimum statute, it's going to take a lot further, and if they pick a different location and it's outside and it's special use, then there's a whole other issues, but would we be willing to do that?
I just want to make a
Mrs.
point of clarification.
Justice.
It's not just state statute, it's actually a city ordinance. So there is a city
good point.
ordinance, that 60.16 is a city ordinance that echoes the state.
Right. Probably like a lot of our local policies, they simply mimic state statute.
I'm just,
so that we're in compliance with the law.
But how easy is it to create a waiver? You would know because you were on the city
First of all,
council.
they're going to kick everything down. And again, I'm not sure of that we're talking about, this is where we're going way in, and I don't want to disrespectfully say to our speakers, out of our bounds, that it's been brought to our attention. We're not going to get in the muck of, they're narrowing down 2 properties and whatever. We really need to stay on top of this. I don't know if you want to write a letter that we understand there's been some talk. of a couple of properties. One is within the 5, and the statute says 500. We hope respectfully that you will honor that statute. And we also know that it's in your city code, very bland milquetoast letter. We want to do that today because of the meeting being the July 17th. I have no problem. I would support that 100%. When we start talking outside of the 500 feet, and if that's a special use, because I don't even know what type of property that River House, I think it's called River House, is, I can't get into the muck of that because now we're really doing a lot of work on something that's not even come to fruition. So I think that will unfold, but I'm willing to have a little letter of, we understand it was brought to our attention, and we know that this is a city ordinance and a state ordinance of 500 feet. We hope that you are, willing to, whatever, you're better at, he's so much better at that.
Are you writing? Can you give her-
Something to that. And no, I'm just asking if.
Mrs. DiAgresta will
Is
send me
that
the
what I'm
draft.
hearing?
And
Because,
then, because it's the legalese, and then I just apply my name.
That's where it needs to be down there.
yes.
I trust that Mrs. Rourke will represent our would
That's a
fight
good
for our
point, too.
schools and our kids, and to make sure that wouldn't, if there's an ordinance in place, that if there was a waiver to say that the ordinance shouldn't, I would imagine that you would probably say, wait,
Well, that's why I'm trying to get direction here, because I don't want to go up there as
And
me.
say
I
that
want to
and
go
not-
up as what am I hearing
then I would be
right
clear and
here?
say, for me, if there's an ordinance in place, I expect for that ordinance to be followed. That's my
Same.
feeling.
I see one other head nodding, at least.
I was about to sleep.
Okay.
No, but the superintendent could make the inquiries, or the attorney could make the inquiries of the city manager and find out exactly what the deal is.
Yeah.
And then he can get back to you and say, this is the letter, the attorney can help write it, or you can write it yourself, or whatever. But I see some support for not allowing that, as long as it complies with state statute. We have to do that. So I would, I can't tell you what to do, Mr. Chairman, but the superintendent could make a phone call in the morning and talk to the city manager and find out what the facts are.
Right, well, and again, I think I mentioned, I know I mentioned in the workshop, July 6th, Harry Howell and I will be sitting around a conference table at the Elected Officials Oversight Committee,
Sounds like
a
hot
different
ticket.
EEOC or something like that, but, so this is another thing for me to add to our agenda, but certainly I'm sure Dr. Rendell is already in communication.
But time is of
But
the
maybe
essence.
not on this issue.
I had not researched this issue, but we will.
Yeah, but, you speak to the city manager, so, okay? Clear as mud, are we good?
No, still, I appreciate the speakers coming forward, because I actually got an email a few days ago, because I heard there were talks, but I didn't know it had actually got to as far as it had gotten. So I appreciate the speakers coming and putting a sense of urgency on this.
Sure, thank you. Okay, that's discussion item 2, unscripted. Anything else? Any other, have we exhausted that? Are we good? Okay. Any other discussion items? Going once? Twice? Outstanding. On to school board member matters. Mr. Searcy?
Nope.
Nope.
I've
Mrs.
already spoken
Simchek?
my turn, piece right there.
He already had show and tell. Got the rocks. Mrs. Simchek?
No.
No? Mrs. Zwerg?
And then we have two meetings we need to address, so I'm gonna not have any comments tonight.
Yep, we got more meetings. More meetings
So-
and meetings.
Shocker.
Mrs. Justice?
Sure, yes, thank you very much, Mr. Faust. I had the opportunity last week to visit summer school at Vero Beach Elementary. And Vero Beach Elementary has a number of different camps going on there. Lots of kids, lots of action. It was like school was in session, to be honest with you. It was, a full school, and that's a big school. So a couple things happened. There was a school improvement plan meeting with parents and teachers, and Principal Emerson had kind of brought everyone together to kind of look at some of the data that had come out from the state and to analyze it, and then to get some feedback about what the vision and the mission, and what the next steps would be for that school. So I thought it was really great to see her engaging her parents in that manner. They really have so much ownership of that school, and it's their community school, and that's lovely. Then I got to go on a tour of summer school, and it was completely different than summer school that I saw before. Rachel Morey was chosen to run that summer school. She's been doing a fantastic job. It's seems. Kids were engaged in learning. She showed me how she did her planning for summer school. There were some interesting situations, like some Glendale Elementary students are working specifically with their teacher, a teacher from Glendale, a behavior intervention specialist, who volunteered to come in and wanted to work with those kids, but she felt that she could really make some improvements with them when she went back to the school that coming year. So it was just really interesting to see summer school, to see that Imagine Summer School is taking place at VBE. So our charter schools have summer school there for their third grade students that needed the extra help. And knowing that the goal is for all students to be able to reach proficiency, but knowing also that if that's not the case, that we're making gains, that the children are making learning gains that will help them. So if there were certain areas where the kids were lacking, if there were certain skill sets that they knew through iReady data and teacher analysis, they actually brought in a teacher, like a second grade teacher, who could focus on those standards that a third grade student might be still lacking from second grade. So just really setting kids up for success, which I think is what summer school should be about. It was awesome, and I think it's still going on this week, and I'm sure she would welcome a visit from any board member who would like to go and visit. That is it, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Well, I just have a couple things. I wanted to wish Nancy Esplin a happy birthday. Thank you for staying with us. Happy birthday. She's the one who does all the work. So I just want to wish her a happy birthday. And, you know, I'm sure there's no place she'd rather be than here with us tonight. So there was cake at least, and we had some sandwiches and stuff. And also echo the thoughts, you know, of Mr. Green. I wish you well. I know what that entrepreneurial spirit and bug can do to a person, and I wish you all the best. And you know, people who know me know that one of my catchphrases is "No time for love, Dr. Jones," from the when I'm busy and people try to reach me. But there's always time for love for Dr. Peggy Jones. I had the honor of working for her at Sebastian River High School, and I get the break in Ms. Cannon's voice because she is just an outstanding leader that hits you. And I know Chris Taylor and I work together for her, and she is just one of a type leader. And I know Dr. Rendell, when he was looking for Dr. Jones, he said, "We need somebody like Dr. Jones." So it's a very specific.
Dr. Jones.
Yeah, call Dr. Jones. So it's a very specific type of leader, and you know the district. We'll have to figure out how to move forward without you, but I just wanted you to know the impact you've made, and wish you all the best. And with that, I want to thank my fellow board members for all the work. We have more to do. If you'll stay in your seats, please. We'll kick off the next meeting and then have a break right on our way upstairs. So I know it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. Trust me. Okay. With that, Dr. Rendell, we are up to superintendent's closing.
No closing comments, Mr.
No